G'day, mate. 40 here. So there aren't many, possibly any topics in which I'm expert in, but I may have some experience with mental illness. So I find this Free Britney story interesting. The New York Times did a fascinating documentary over the weekend. There's this documentary series, The New York Times Presents, and they did about 80 minutes on Britney Spears. So she's now 39 years of age. And for the past 13 years, she has been in a conservatorship. So she kind of wigged out in 2007, 2008. And now she's getting all this news coverage about the recent documentary. So the Los Angeles Times published today, released Friday, the provocative documentary explores how the media mishandled coverage of Britney Spears during both her brightest and darkest moments. And that seems to be the dominant emotional tone. It's interesting how all these diverse media outlets, they tend to always react to stories with an almost universal emotional tone. So the dominant news coverage of this documentary is look at how the news media failed Britney Spears. Look at how society failed Britney Spears. Not much emphasis on, well, how did Britney Spears create this horrendous situation? What role did Britney Spears play in creating her own troubles? I mean, she started using her sexuality to drive her career, starting at about age 13, 14. So it seems to me that the media handled their coverage of her according to the cues she provided. We have a profound effect on how other people treat us. We don't determine how other people treat us, but we have a profound effect. So I don't see Britney Spears as an innocent lamb who was set upon by wolves. So she went out in 2007 with Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan, just a couple of months after she'd given birth to her second son. And all three of them choose to go out to not wear panties and to conduct themselves in a way that encourages the paparazzi to take these graphic upskirt shots. Now, if these women had not acted that way, the paparazzi would not have had these graphic crotch shots and they would not have been able to publish them. So the tabloids never had much interest in Meryl Streep because she does not provide them with fodder. So celebrities, it seems to me, who are dogged by the media, usually say and do things that lead to the type of coverage that they receive. We usually play a role, at least most of the time, in our own troubles. So February 5, Los Angeles Times published, for 13 years, nearly every aspect of Britney Spears' life, including major financial, professional, and medical decisions, has been controlled by her father, Jamie Spears, through a court-approved conservatorship. So she started making a lot of weird decisions in 2007. Apparently, she's been diagnosed bipolar, and she was in a relationship with an Iranian actor and manager, Sam Asghari. And he spoke out Tuesday on Instagram. Now it's important for people to understand that I have zero respect for someone trying to control our relationship and constantly throwing obstacles our way. In my opinion, Britney Spears' father, James, is a total dick. I won't be going into details, but I didn't come to this country to not be able to express my opinion and freedom. So I obviously have not seen Britney Spears' medical record, so I don't have a strong opinion about whether or not she should be in conservatorship. So there's a lot of skepticism in the documentary about Britney Spears' social media activity because her father has long micromanaged her career and her public image through the conservatorship. So people wonder how much of Britney's Instagram content is actually coming from Britney herself. And ironically, growing up, Britney Spears had very little to do with her father. Her father was an alcoholic, and he just wasn't around. So this story hits home pretty intensely for JF Gariepy.
Today, I think it's a great time to talk about the Free Britney Spears movement. I've talked about here and there. I've been very shocked at the fact that we have this adult and high-functioning human being who has been losing her liberties for the last 13 years. And I have personal experience with these systems because there are loved ones of mine that were kidnapped violently by these systems of probate court, these systems where a judge, typically in collaboration with a member of your family, will have you found mentally incompetent and will have you stripped of any liberty and any decision on your own life and your entire wealth. And this is what happened to Britney Spears. And it's been happening for the last 13 years that she has not been free and that she has been detained by these systems, which are worse than prison, really, because you're in prison, you're outside of the prison, and yet you don't even have rights. At least inside the prison, you still have rights to self-determine to a certain extent. You have lost your freedom of movement, but you still make decisions for yourself, for example, as it relates to medication and wealth. But in the case of Britney Spears and in the case of the tens of thousands of people, in fact, it's probably in the hundreds of thousands across America per year, people who get kidnapped by these systems in collaboration with psychiatrists who often are biased toward the family rather than the individual. These expert psychologists who will administer tests at the request of the judge, who will charge by the thousands and thousands of dollars, and sometimes will be biased against the individual and for the rest of the family. What we have in America is a kidnapping system for adult human beings. And there is no way to get out of this. There is no due process in these places. Britney Spears, for example, consider her.
So JF has had a horrible experience with family courts, and he's routinely mocked and berated for his experiences in this area. So I'm not going to add to his pain and humiliation because I just have no expertise with regard to his various controversies. But what he does have that I don't have is much more firsthand experience. So generally speaking, it's a good idea to stay out of courts. I've never sued anyone. So once you get into a lawsuit or once you get involved with the police, things can escalate in unpredictable ways.
Has millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars, I don't know exactly, but she's certainly a multi-millionaire, you know. But still, she doesn't even have her own lawyer in these representations. She has a court-appointed lawyers, and these court-appointed lawyers are typically within that system. They are as bad as the judge and as bad as the expert psychologist. So it's looking bad, and
So I have no reason to believe that things are as bad as JF indicates, but he has firsthand experience. I don't. So let's see if I can play a few excerpts from this New York Times documentary.
I'm not a diva. I know what I like and I know what I want.
She was definitely in control of a lot of decisions. That idea that Britney is a puppet who just gets moved around and told what to.
So this is a backup dancer who worked with Britney Spears between 1999 to 2004.
Do is incredibly inaccurate. When I was involved in all of those years, we would present a lot of ideas. She would have to like them, and she would have to approve them.
So I just don't know of any situation akin to what Britney Spears is going through. 13 years as a high-functioning adult, often earning millions of dollars a year, and for 13 years still in conservatorship. So I've had my ups and I've had my downs, but I've never been in conservatorship. But I remember waking up with what seemed like a bad case of the flu in February 1988 and never feeling the same since. And there's never been any medical test which has established what the heck happened. But I just went from being strong and healthy, able to do 120 pull-ups and about 1,500 push-ups in about 30 minutes. I was doing this really strong workout routine. I was working about 30 hours a week in landscaping and taking 22 units at college. And everything seemed great. I was headed for UCLA. So I was very happy. And then suddenly my life just fell apart. It was like I had a return of mono, only it didn't go away. But there's no definitive medical test that ever established what the heck happened. So I lost all my strength almost overnight, and I've never been able to work out hard ever since. But because there's no definitive medical test showing what's happened, you could make a case, hey, this was all in your head. This was a face-saving way for you to fail. Maybe I had a lack of relationships in my life, and this was my face-saving way to fail. So during those 6 years that I was basically bedridden, I would try a lot of different things to try to recover my health. And so one of the things that I tried was hormone replacement therapy. So I'd try testosterone. And so that made me more horny. It bulked me up. It changed the shape of my face. Might have even gotten a little angrier, and gave me a few glimmerings of the old strength, but it wasn't sustainable. I tried thyroid supplementation, and that just killed my weight. So when I got sick, I weighed about 160 pounds. But when I went, I think I went down to about 145 most of the time I was sick. And then getting on thyroid, my weight cratered to 110 pounds at one point. So I was 6 feet tall and 110 pounds. And I was very scary looking. I couldn't lie on my side because I was so skinny. So I was living with my parents that they were very worried about me. And I just felt like the world was collapsing in around me. And so around this time, I got the idea that I would fornicate my way to health. That the theory being that if I just had sex with a woman, she'd get emotionally hooked. And if she got emotionally hooked, she'd try to help me. I just felt like I was in the grip of something that was beyond my comprehension, beyond my ability to solve. And I didn't have any confidence that my parents would be able to find a way out of this, horror show that I was living. And so I start fornicating, I start meeting women, and eventually, I meet a woman who's 11 years older than me, but she has a great psychiatrist. So I move with her back to Orlando, Florida. She takes me to her great psychiatrist, the late Dr. Daniel Goldwyn. And after a few months, he suggests that I try medication called Nardil, Nardil. And within hours of taking that medication, I start to improve. And I tried many meds before this. I tried many different approaches to try to get over my chronic fatigue syndrome. But finally, within a matter of weeks, I start steadily being restored to at least 2/3 of a normal life. So in a sense, I owe this older woman my life. Now, we had a tumultuous relationship that ended about the same time I went on Nardil, but I knew that I was in the grip of something that I wasn't capable of solving. So I didn't sign over a formal conservatorship, but I did go see her psychiatrist, and I'm damn grateful that I did.
She was very creative. She was the one who knew what she wanted to do, and she would make that happen, or her people would make that happen for her. That's how I got hired, is because she just told somebody, no, I want him to do it. And it happened within an hour.
So she was decisive, but if you'd met me, let's say that the day I got sick was something like February 8th, 1988. So if you'd met me February 7th, 1988, you would have met a decisive man. Like, I was very focused. I was using my time in a very disciplined way. I thought I was quite happy. I was moving ahead. I was conquering calculus. I was accepted into UCLA. I had about $40,000 in savings. I loved my work. I loved my schooling. I loved our cops and our law enforcement. Loved our military too, because they're important. And so I would have seemed decisive and in charge of my life. And then the very next day, it can completely disappear. So apparently, Britney Spears has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I've never been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but I had, 50% of the bipolar symptoms. So I don't know, starting in my teens, I would have these phases where I'd feel like there were no consequences to anything I did, that I could get away with anything. And then I would have crashing lows where I felt like no matter what I did, I could never escape my misery. And that no matter what I did, I would inevitably screw it up. So whether it came to relationships or to work or to all my plans, I was just convinced that I would inevitably screw things up. And so I'd kind of go back and forth between, somewhat manic state. So I never had a manic episode. I've never been arrested or 5150'd or hospitalized or anything like that. But I would feel like there were no consequences to anything I'd said or did, that, I was so amazing I could get away with anything. So that would be how I'd fly about, 10% of the time. Then about 10% of the time, I'd have these crashing lows where I felt like there was nothing I could do to escape my misery. then 80% of the time I was somewhat normal. So people can be normal, and then they can have a precipitating event that takes someone who has otherwise seemed completely normal, and they go nuts. So, for example, you can bring someone into your life, and you can be a happy, secure person, but they may have an uncanny way of playing on your weaknesses, and where before the person you were confident and secure, and then suddenly you become, over the course of weeks, maybe months, you become paranoid and insecure. On the other hand, you can take someone who's fairly insecure, have them enter into a relationship with someone who's secure in their attachment style, and the insecure person can start to become secure. So I've had moments of my life, I've had seasons in my life where I've been secure, when I've been adopted, say, into another family, where I've managed to make a circle of friends, where I've managed to find a community, and my chronic insecurity would mute my need for, graphic, ugly, vulgar attention seeking would dramatically diminish. And it was though my central nervous system just calmed down as I found people that I felt comfortable with and who liked me and I liked them. So one circumstance we can be just fine, circumstances changes and we can go screwy. It can move in both directions. So it will have a profound amount to do often with the type of person that you bring into your life, particularly romantic sexual relationships. That is very likely to bring out the crazy in you, but also has a tremendous capacity for a reparative experience.
She was the boss.
That is gonna be fucking cool every night, man.
Right. So you may feel like you're the boss, but then you get into an intense sexual romantic relationship, and you may very well find that things have been triggered in you, and you are no longer the boss of your own affairs. On the other hand, you may enter into a sexual romantic relationship, all messed up, and in the course of sustaining a relationship, you may have that reparative experience that starts to heal the wounds in your soul, and you may learn to love and to trust and to connect on an ongoing basis.
How do you get control over your own life? And, because you are a part of this huge...
Well, that's why I am where I am today, is because I do have control.
Did you read the confidence critique?
You just control what you do. You have to, otherwise you get sucked in by people that...
So up until about 2006, Britney Spears appeared completely in control of her life, and then things just spun out of control.
Are not necessary.
And what caused things to spin out of control, it was an intense and public relationship. So very rarely am I acquainted with public relationships that have worked out. Going public with your love life seems to be the death knell for your love life.
Just doing my thing right now.
So Justin Timberlake.
We don't have royalty here. We've got famous people. What was interesting about the Britney Spears-Justin Timberlake relationship was that we hadn't really had a kind of, American couple.
So prior to Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears seemed quite stable. After Justin Timberlake, she was never the same again.
In a minute.
He said "I love you" to you when you...
He did. I know. I saw.
And when they got together, I think a lot of people thought it was just totally perfect, and they wanted to know everything about their relationship.
Am I a virgin? Yes, I am a virgin, and I definitely want to try and have sex till I'm married. I just want to wait for that special someone.
Right. So she seemed high functioning. When you borrow functioning, do you have to pay interest? Not in my experience. You don't have to pay interest. But what happens is you're miserable, you're miserable, you're miserable. Then you fall in with a friend or a family or a group of people, and you're no longer miserable. You suddenly feel happy and normal. So you suddenly move from not very functional to functional. And then that may last for weeks or months or even years. And then it always goes away. But in my experience, you don't then revert to lower than what you were. You just revert back to what you were. And you just have the keen pain of having experienced normality. and then having it taken away. So perhaps in some senses, having experienced normality and then losing it is an intense kind of pain that some people can't handle. So I remember one friend who did not want to get into romantic relationships because it was just too painful for him to handle the breakups.
So, thank you.
So why is Britney Spears getting these kind of intrusive questions? Well, she and her management team created an image and a persona that leads to this kind of intrusive questioning and media coverage.
They break up. Justin sort of made it seem, rightly or wrongly, like she had cheated on him. It really seemed like he took control of the narrative.
The way that people treated her, to be very high school about it, was like she was the school slut.
Yeah, but there's nothing in this documentary about, were the things that Britney did that contributed to the way that people treated her.
Problem is, you find yourself bound by one thing, which is the willingness of the judge to liberate you. And as it turns out, here we have an individual, Britney Spears, who hasn't been liberated. The judge felt like she benefited from this deprivation of her rights for 13 years. How long can you be under these things? Well, as long as the judge wants. As long as the judge wants. All your life if they want. Mama JF says, and it's crazy that it never ends. Like when you go to prison, it's for a limited amount of time. For this, it's all their life. It's crazy. Absolutely. If we were to give lifelong imprisonment to people, there would be...
Right. So people don't generally seem to leave conservatorship. So there are a lot of things that are a lot easier to enter than to leave. All right. So once you file a lawsuit, all right, you just have no idea where it can go. Once the sides start exchanging discovery, it can turn your world upside down. So that's why sane, normal, happy people, generally speaking, they try to do everything they can to avoid lawsuits unless they're just utterly shameless like a Donald Trump. But normal, happy people try to do everything they can to avoid lawsuits because once this feud really gets stoked, you have no idea where it can go. And normal, happy people, try to avoid calling the police because once the police get involved, once people with guns get involved, you just have no idea what direction it might go in.
And he was like the school.
So there's this pop culture magazine, Britney's Wild Nights. Whoa, with bad boy Colin Farrell one night and Justin another. The sexy singer has everyone guessing which guy is next. So I've had a friend, Kevin Blatt, who was a sex tape broker. So he'd get hold of, say, a Colin Farrell celebrity sex tape, and then he'd sell it back to Colin, or he'd barter these sex tapes, and he'd get a nice fee off the top.
Quarterback or whatever, and he essentially weaponizes the video for one of his singles to incriminate her in the demise of the relationship.
Okay, I think I'm going to pass the video here.
It was a revenge, pure male revenge fantasy.
Justin Timberlake is in the house, and I just want to ask you one question. Did you Britney Spears? Yes or no?
Oh, man.
Come on, man.
Okay, I did it. No. Yeah!
Okay, so whoever you go to bed with, whoever you relate to, whoever you have relationships with, they're going to be pretty much a reflection of you. You're never going to date for very long, have relationships for very long with anyone who's considerably more mature or less mature than you, because it'd just be too excruciating for whichever party is more mature. So you go out with someone who's a jerk like that, you're not just a victim here. You brought that person into your life, and you related to them because you're on about the same level.
Due process, there would be a possibility to request to a court that this is too much punishment. There is no such thing as too much punishment in guardianship and in probate courts, because these courts are built around the presumption that the intervention of the court is in the interest of the person, even if they can't know it. So these systems are built in a way that you can't get out of them. And today we're going to talk about what the fans of Britney Spears are claiming the documentaries that are coming out, and I think there's more informative documentary, which I will give you the link to. And also, how do you not get in these situations? Because it's a sad thing in America, the land of freedom, but you now need survival tactics to not be kidnapped as an adult. And I'm going to let you know how it works and how you can avoid these issues. It's quite simple. I mean, Britney Spears, it's very hard to get access to her information. However, from the...
Yeah, it's hard to get access to her medical records, and that's how it should be.
Little bits of information that she has released herself by talking to the press at times, we can construct what's been happening here. And the documentary that came out is The Handling of Britney Spears, Framing Britney Spears. That's the name of a documentary produced by the New York Times. I'll tell you what, I've seen bouts of it and I've seen reviews of it. I haven't seen it all because you have to...
Yeah, so this is a little reckless here, JF, to pass commentary on a documentary he's only seen a few excerpts of.
To be subscribed to Hulu. But I'll tell you what, just see...
There are other ways to find the documentary. So apparently JF would have just seen the previews, which is like a minute or two of the documentary.
Seeing the little bouts of it and seeing the reviews, it doesn't seem like it's a very powerful documentary. It seems like they mostly go to their to the fans of Britney Spears, and they don't have much...
No, not really. The fans of Britney Spears maybe take up 10%, 15% of the documentary. I thought it was really well done. So you can sign up on Hulu for free and watch the documentary.
Well, you know, misogyny, I don't know, what can you say about misogyny? There's a whole infrastructure to support it. And when it's time for people to come in a misogynistic culture for a woman, there's a whole apparatus ready to do it.
Okay. There's also a whole apparatus ready to go after men. So I'm not sure that our misogynistic culture is to blame. The documentary wants to blame our culture and our media when it's Britney Spears who's created her own troubles. So November 13, 2003, ABC's Primetime Thursday airs an exclusive interview with Britney Spears promising no holds barred. I assume this is with Diane Sawyer.
I have to ask a couple of things about Justin.
Okay, of course.
He has gone on television and pretty much said, you broke his heart. You did something that...
Okay, so this isn't the media just intruding with this. This is a story that Britney was happy to go public with for a long time. She was happy to milk the publicity of the relationship, and she chose to date this guy. And so there are consequences to one's decisions.
Caused him so much pain, so much suffering. What did you do?
Her image was being painted as, oh, what did you do to cause the breakup?
It's a reasonable question, right? If you want to milk the publicity about your relationship, then when the relationship goes sour, you can expect to be held accountable.
You must have done something, not him.
Britney Spears has upset a lot of mothers in this country, starting with the wife of the governor of Maryland.
Okay, so was there anything that Britney Spears did? Okay, she started packaging and essentially selling her sexuality starting at about age 13. So it's not weird that many mothers would be annoyed with her, right? There are consequences to your decisions.
Really, if I had an opportunity to shoot Britney Spears, I think I would.
Oh, that's horrible.
Well,
that's really bad.
Because of the example for kids and how hard it is to be a parent.
Well, that's really sad that she said that. Ew. I'm not here to, you know.
I remember there was a podcasting personality in the porn industry in circa 2003 to 2007. His name was Wenkus. He's now born again. So he's now found Jesus, left the porn industry behind. But he used to be a radio personality. He once interviewed Britney Spears, and he said to her, wow, you're not nearly as attractive without your makeup.
Babysit her kids.
There's just that invisible line that seemed to exist then that nobody knew how to handle, and nobody knew how to help her handle it.
I've had a year that would test a lot of people.
Look, she chose to market her sexuality starting about age 13. So, yeah, there are going to be consequences. You decided to exploit your sexuality, and you're widely popular with underage teenage girls. And so, yeah, parents are going to have a problem.
Pretty rough. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Hello. Ew. Strong Britney. Yeah, it was a weird time. Ew. I'm embarrassed. Can we stop this?
Okay, so you may think you're on top of the world and everything may be great when you choose to exploit a certain angle, and then the payback comes and you find you can't handle it. That seems to be part of the Britney story.
Don't you think it's something you really want to do all the time, to be on stage dancing and singing?
I do that for fun. That's not my life. You know, I see myself in the future with my kids and my husband, and maybe do this on the side.
Right. So if you want to make money by being a star, then there's going to be some blowback. There are going to be some consequences, particularly when you threaten parents and the messages that parents are trying to give their kids.
Much factual things to bring because they don't know much about the situation. At least that's what I can judge by just peeking at it. But let me tell you, if you want the whole story, you go for something like this. #FreeBritney, the movement, documentary. Here, that's part 5, but they have part 1, 2, 3, 4. This is much more equipped. Now, it's not journalistic standard, this video. It's like you're going to see some fans theorizing, but at least you're going to get the whole thing here. With the New York Times stuff at Hulu, from what I've seen, you don't get the whole thing. So the whole thing includes, you know, leaks of information that came from herself, from people working around her, that came from people engaged in the legal case. So, and also with her appearances in the media before all this started, before it came to be the movement, #FreeBritney.
Okay, so Elliott Blatt is getting critiqued on the DLive chat. So I was listening to Elliott on yesterday's show. What planet is he from? San Francisco. Well, check out Elliott's results after extensive research and wasting $1,200 on a brand new iPhone and Verizon contract. Okay, so here's the video. So watching the sun go down with Elliott. So your technical expertise is being challenged here, Elliott Blatt. So let's have a look here.
Okay. All right. So the point of this stream is to test out the new phone and to go to some remote parts across the bridge to see if we have Wi-Fi connection over in the... Oops, that was no good. Oh, we lost the phone already. That was bad. Oh, things are... Oh. Hold on. Are you still there?
Yeah, I can see the sunroof and everything. I can see trees. It's looking good.
I went over a bump and it shook the phone off. All right, but I've rigged... Okay, this is going to be... So that's going to work on the magnets? Okay. So you ready for the big inauguration tomorrow?
I guess. I've just heard Trump's farewell speech, his defiance farewell speech. I suppose, people want the National Guard to take over. The one that's so desperate to vet properly because they think, oh no, we don't want the ones from Texas because we don't know what they might do.
Yeah, I've heard they took away everyone's ammunition or something. Did you hear about this?
It's going to be so terrible. It's like, the jumping at their own shadow because they know what they have done.
Okay, so Elliott Blatt is getting critiqued on my DLive chat. Check out Elliott's results after wasting $1,200 on a brand new iPhone and Verizon contract. I listened to Elliott tell you how he's done his research and exhausted the limits of currently available live streaming capabilities. And I was like, bruh, have you even watched a Year of Baked Alaska stream? So I don't remember a lot of Baked Alaska driving streams. The chat also says, I watched Apricot Sky and now I'm miserable. Now I have to live with the consequences. And DLive chat says, Baked Alaska dropped probably about half a dozen frames in the entire year of 2020. The unspoken context of JF Gariepy's commentary here is that he ended up in the family courts and he defended himself and he lost all rights to his kid. Heartbreaking story. Okay, let's watch a little bit here of Elliott with Claire.
And it started to sizzle, and I looked at it, and I took a breath, and it all went into my lungs. So that was pretty horrible, but I got over that.
Okay.
So the year of Elliott
Well,
Blatt.
today is the sunset that you were asking for last time.
Oh,
so-
great! I love those trees. Well, what are those trees on the right?
I think they're called cypress trees.
Oh, right. Oh, yes. We have them too, but they look sort of different. And well, I mean, they're not usually lined up together like that in the UK. Although we have cypress trees too.
Really? I thought Cyprus were a little more temperate than... And we have Mediterranean climate here. This is like Italy.
I mean, we do have cypress trees like in Hyde Park, but I mean, they're not all bunched up together. You know, you see all these other trees, and a cypress tree. But here you just have a whole bunch of them lined up like sentries, like soldiers.
Yeah.
On parade.
Yeah. Well, right. We have a lot of those, and we have a lot of eucalyptus. I think this is a eucalyptus on the left.
Ah.
The eucalyptus question.
So you can't tell, but they smell great. It's just a great smelling tree.
Apparently, koala bears smell eucalyptus too. Because they eat them, but they eat the eucalyptus leaves, don't they? And then they end up smelling like them. I'm seeing your avatar again, and now I'm seeing the inside of your car.
Yep. Yeah. So the magnet thing that I have doesn't work on this new phone. It's like always something. Unbelievable.
But maybe when you get to the sunset, then you can find that guy who's always drinking a glass of wine when the sun is setting.
Okay, so I think the Zohar says all beginnings are difficult, and there's absolutely nothing all right, no one, please don't think for even a second that I have any illusions about my own technical capabilities. I have done, all sorts of horrible technical disasters. I mean, my sound sucked for years. So there's not a teeny weeny bit in me that is at all has a disproportionate sense of my own technical abilities.
Anon sends a super chat. By the way, join me on Entropy. The link to Entropy is in the description below. Entropy is my favorite platform for super chats. And my question to you guys tonight is, will Britney Spears be freed on February 11th? Because in 4 days from now is a very important date. And I hope that she makes it. I don't even know what's her intent. Will she request an end to the conservatorship? I hope she does, and I hope she wins if she does. But I don't know. It's very opaque because it's all under authority.
Yeah, it's very opaque because it has to do with her private medical records. And I would think one consideration would be you get conservatorship wrong, and Britney may well put her life in jeopardy, or she may give away millions of her dollars. She may ruin her life. She may ruin her kids' lives. So there's that consideration that she could make just one bad move and ruin everything. So traditionally, women have been in conservatorship. Traditionally, it's either been a father, a husband, or some male relative who's taken responsibility for a woman's decision. So it's not like this conservatorship is rare in the history of Western civilization. So you did not have a lot of independent women walking around over the past 6,000 years.
Or an secrecy and everything. So it's hard to know what will happen on February 11th. But there's a hearing, and I hang to the hope that somehow the judge will see through some kind of reasonable lens and finally decide to free her, because that's unsustainable. It's a terrible way to waste the life of an adult, to give her freedoms into the hands of her father, who I've seen in interviews, and my judgment is that the father is much less eloquent, much more low IQ than her. And so it's a terrible thing when someone like this, who's been essentially exploiting you as an object of celebrity since you're, Britney Spears, 6 years old, 7 years old? I mean, I was...
So her father may indeed be lower IQ and less talented and less capable, but he may still at the same time be the best choice. You can be high IQ and be bipolar. You can be high IQ and not tend to make adult decisions for yourself. So New York Times Presents is the documentary. It's season 1, episode 6. It's on Hulu and the FX network. It dropped on Friday. So this
Hey,
excerpt
I want to
from
introduce you guys to my
2004
friend Kevin. He's so cute.
is Britney and Kevin Federline.
I feel like I've been missing out.
Okay.
I feel like I've been missing out on life.
So it used to be that monogamy meant you were with one person your entire life. But nowadays, monogamy means that you're with one person at a time. So you may be with one person on Friday, and then a different person on Saturday, and then a different person on Sunday. But to many people's way of thinking, you're still monogamous.
What part of life?
Serial monogamy.
I don't think I was at...
And this is the big get in this New York Times documentary. Felicia Carlson is Britney's friend since about age 10 or 11 and former assistant who was eventually fired by Britney's dad.
All surprised when she and Kevin got engaged.
The announcement of Britney's sudden engagement had the whole country talking.
She told me, and then I remember her saying, I gotta call my mama. And I'm like, absolutely you do.
And Britney's parents, they split up in circa 2002. So the Los Angeles Times on February 5 notes, for 13 years, nearly every aspect of Britney Spears' life, including major financial, professional, and medical decisions, has been controlled by her father, Jamie Spears, through a court-approved conservatorship. And remember, in 2019, Britney went back to rehab, so it's not like life has just been smooth sailing. So applying the rigor of a frontline episode to a narrative that has been shaped by thinly sourced gossip and anonymous hearsay, framing Britney Spears is a pointed work of cultural criticism that might make some viewers feel guilty about idly gawking at pictures of Spears on Perez Hilton circa 2007. There's no reason for anyone to feel guilty about looking at paparazzi photos of Britney Spears' meltdown. That's on Britney Spears. By retelling her story from the vantage point of 2021 at what we hope is a time of greater sensitivity to mental health issues and a heightened post-Me Too understanding of the misogyny that pervades much of celebrity culture, the documentary encourages viewers to reconsider their ideas about Britney Spears, her chaotic tabloid persona, and her fervently devoted friends. Well, this is the dominant narrative, whether it's in the Washington Post or the Los Angeles Times or the New York Times. New York Times senior editor, story editor Liz Day, who works at the paper's branded FX docuseries The Weekly, says she was drawn to making a film about Britney Spears because she wondered, how could the same person be able to perform at a very high level in Vegas as a superstar, doing sold-out shows, making millions of dollars, but at the same time we're being told that she is so vulnerable and at risk that she needs this very intense layer of protection. Well, it's not unusual that the extreme sensitivity that enables one to be an artist may also come with a lot of downsides when it comes to making practical decisions. So rock stars, for example, are famous for having the ability to mesmerize 100,000 people at a concert, but be completely incapable of making ordinary decisions. What makes Britney Spears' conservatorship unusual, other than her extraordinary fame, is that these legal arrangements are typically designed for older people, often with dementia, who are incapable of making informed decisions or physically taking care of themselves. There's a catch-22 for people who attempt to terminate a conservatorship. You're not necessarily in total control of your day-to-day life or your finances. How do you prove that you can be in control of your finances and your day-to-day life?
But what do they think about this guy, Kevin Federline, first of all?
Lynn Spears says that the two have good karma together.
According to reports, the house you see behind me here in Studio City is where Britney Spears tied the knot Saturday night.
Okay, and so she's all over Us Weekly and the other celebrity magazines. Did she fake her wedding? That's Us Weekly. And the D-Live chat says the reason that Elliott had trouble is because he used Claire Corr's OBS running on a potato to perform his tests. Elliott should call into you to compare his video and he will be happily amazed. I don't know if Elliott enjoys bants. I only want Elliott to reach his potential, says the D-Live chat. Okay.
My name is Britt.
Let me run through some of these.
She told me, and then I remember her saying, I gotta call my mama. And I'm like, absolutely you do.
But what do they think about this guy, Kevin Federline, first of all?
Lynn Spears says that the two have good karma together.
According to reports that
Okay, that's Jess Cagle from People magazine. I think I once wrote to him for a job circa 2007, and he wrote back, hey, why don't you keep doing what you're doing?
the house you see behind me here in Studio City is
Then I
where
wanted to get out
Britney
of
Spears
porn.
tied the knot Saturday night.
Want to go mainstream. So, Us Weekly says, Britney the Bridezilla, inside the fights, deceit, and drama of Britney's fall wedding. Why the split rumors are false. Is Jennifer Aniston pregnant? Surprising new photos. No, she wasn't. Did she fake her wedding? Britney's private album. Never before seen photos of the newlyweds' secret romantic life.
My name is Britton Stone, and I was the photography director of Us Weekly for about a decade.
Wow. So there are all these stories on Hollywood's drug problem, and there's a photo of Britney Spears inside the dark world destroying the stars. So let's look a little bit more here. Trying to slow it down because it's just flashing all these tabs.
My name is Britton Stone, and I was the photography director of Us Weekly for about a decade.
Britney's plan for revenge, the full story of their final days, Mum's intervention, the letter that ended it. She leaves Kevin Federline broke, secrets of her makeover.
When I had a really healthy budget, it'd be $140,000 a week on imagery. Extrapolate that over the year, $7, $8 million. But, spending millions of dollars on pictures, that just, quintupled the amount of money that was out there.
So it seemed like from 2005, 2006, 2007, Britney was on about 20, 30 Us magazine covers.
Which meant there were a lot more photographers coming in and doing it.
I never wanted to be considered a paparazzi. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, but it sucks you right in, and there's...
This is Daniel Ramos, celebrity videographer, former tabloid photographer. So remember interviewing a Hollywood movie producer who was distantly related to Jerry Bruckheimer. And so when this producer was in college, he managed to get a call back from Jerry Bruckheimer, and he said to Jerry, I don't know what I want to do, if I want to direct, if I want to produce, if I want to write, if I want to act. And Jerry Bruckheimer gave him some great advice. He said, life will teach you what you're good at.
It's hard to get out of it once you start making the kind of monies that these guys were making.
Photos of Britney can sell for up to $1 million each.
Yeah, there's a price for fame.
Seeing footage of her as a kid being in these videos, to have this father who cannot even state an English sentence properly constructed be the magical decision maker that somehow would manage her wealth better than her, I'm not going to believe this. This looks like abuse and it looks like extortion, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why. Anon sends a super chat. He says, thanks for your great work, JF. Britney actually reminds me of Elvis. Was he not totally controlled by the colonel, his agent, money and freedom-wise? I've never digged in depth into the Elvis story, but it reminds me something. I think you may be right. And the problem of probate courts here is that these courts have been established under good intent, but they are almost systematically being misused. And here they are being used for the continuation.
So I remember I upgraded my internet speed, was it about a little over a year ago? So I had to pay something like $200 for installation and about $150 a month. But I have the best speed. Don't have the best speed, folks. Just blazing fast internet. And that made a lot of my OBS troubles and related issues just go away.
Guys, be nice. Everybody's gonna get their shots, guys. In the beginning, when paparazzis were following Britney, you could tell she enjoyed it.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that you enjoy until suddenly you don't anymore.
Talk to me, baby girl. She would give up the shots, waving. She was very friendly, sweetheart of a girl. It was like she needed us and we needed her. We both needed each other. And it was a great kind of relationship.
Party at my house.
All right, let's go.
Okay, back to the Los Angeles Times from February 5. Framing Britney Spears as the latest project to reconsider women once ridiculed and reviled because of their role in salacious scandals, such as Monica Lewinsky, Lorena Bobbitt, and Paris Hilton. It asks us to ponder our collective complicity in the mockery and sexist criticism to which Spears has been subjected. Well, what role did she play in creating mockery and criticism? There are clips of a cruel segment from Family Feud, named something that Britney Spears has lost in the last year, and an ABC interview in which Diane Sawyer interrogates Spears about the end of her relationship to Justin Timberlake. The breakup with Justin Timberlake marked a turning point in the media's coverage of Britney Spears and the beginning of a nasty backlash that continued during her ill-fated marriage to Kevin Federline. Britney Spears had the misfortune of breaking down as the vulturous tabloid culture of the mid-aughts reached its peak when a lucky paparazzo could make hundreds of thousands of dollars off a single celebrity snapshot. So the dominant media ethos seems to be it's sexist and misogynistic to hold women accountable for their words and behavior. At the same time, they should be granted absolutely equal rights with men in every area where they want equal rights, but when they want exemptions and special treatment, such as they don't have to serve on the front lines of the military, then they should be granted that. So the dominant feminist, the dominant media ethos, women should get everything they want. They should not be held accountable for their words and deeds. If they want equal treatment, they should always get equal treatment. But if they switch and say, I want preferential treatment, then they should be given preferential treatment.
Thank you, Britney. We love you. Yeah, sure.
Well, there was always a little bit of a hunger for the unposed photographs.
Sometimes their personal life becomes bigger than their work.
As we had more of that kind of material in the magazine, the sales just went up.
And D-Live Chat says it's Claire Core's rusty CPU that can't handle Elliott Blatt's frames, brah. I mean, Elliott could be huge. I mean, we're talking about the year Yob, the year of Elliott Blatt. I mean, that's what we could be looking at. All right, if you just hooked up his smashing live video to my CPU, bro.
Spears and Kevin Federline.
Britney then makes an announcement that attracts even more paparazzi.
And now, the baby, that's very exciting. Now, you have to be really excited about that.
Yes, ma'am.
The last one, yeah. You don't look pregnant.
Once she started having her kid with Kevin Federline, it
explodes. And one thing that parents tell me, and it makes complete sense, is that you become incredibly more vulnerable once you have kids. So something that you can sustain when you don't have kids, once you have kids, much of your behavior and outlook on life becomes unsustainable.
Of the grasp of a man over his daughter's liberty, which is often what happens, by the way. And one thing that's true in the New York Times documentary, which I can tell you is absolutely true, and it's a leftist point, but it's true. Probate courts are misogynistic. I've seen it. Probate courts are designed to deprive females of their liberty. And it's absolutely unacceptable that this still exists in 2021. But
well, is it really unacceptable? There are different ideas about equality. There's the mathematical equality idea, and that is that everything should be absolutely mathematically equal. And that's absurd. So on the one hand, if we say diversity is a wonderful thing, then you can't ask for mathematical equality. And then you can ask for equality when a group wants equality, but preferential treatment when the group wants preferential treatment. So do you want equality? What do you want? You want mathematical equality? You can always find problems when different people have different gifts. Martin Gurri wrote an excellent essay on just this theme.
Bloated. Keep him alive, guys. Keep him back up, guys. Everyone wanted a piece of Britney. The tabloids were paying a lot of money.
Back away now.
We want to know what she's buying. Hey, we make you go measure for you.
And almost immediately, there's the perception from the tabloids that Britney is an unfit mother.
Pop star Britney Spears is defending her actions this morning after photos surfaced of her driving with her infant son in her lap on Monday.
The headline of the New York Post yesterday, Britney tripping outside of New York.
Okay, so was there anything that Britney did that brought on this harsh coverage? Martin Gurri writes about the historical theory of injustice, that you just blame conditions that formed our society and its institutions in the past if we don't have absolute mathematical equality. So history, in this way of thinking, chronicles the uninterrupted feasting of human wolves upon the weak. Injustice, not truth, is the daughter of time, and it's systemic, structural, and inescapable. So this historical theory of injustice is very popular and widespread. There's an academic version in the aptly named critical theory. There's a journalistic version in the New York Times 1619 Project. There's the political version in Black Lives Matter. President Biden's language in his executive orders bristles with references to entrenched disparities, systemic racism, and the historically underserved. So Marxism stands at the source of most radical interpretations of history. Critical theory and Black Lives Matter exist in an ideological universe that might be described as neo-Marxist. So in Nicole Hannah-Jones' essay for the 1619 Project, every figure of authority in U.S. history, including Abraham Lincoln, was presented as a purveyor of injustice. According to Hannah-Jones, our democracy's founding ideals were false when they were written. Black Americans fought to make them true. But the ideals of oppressors can be assumed to be oppressive, or else there is a higher authority than naked power. If I were to say, for example, the ideals of the Nazis were false until Jews fought to make them true, I would commit a repulsive absurdity. Once classical liberal values are introduced, we have a standard of moral progress. The present, instead of being trapped in systemic injustice, is only a moment in the evolution of an imperfect species toward an ambitious ideal of personal freedom. The prime mover of human relations is no longer the will to power, but the unprecedented attempt to transcend it. And progress has been striking. There are no kings, there are no aristocrats, there's no slavery or Jim Crow anymore. We are, in America, regardless of our chosen identity, freer, wealthier, healthier, better educated, more mobile, and better connected than our ancestors. 2 centuries of progress in the context of liberal values is difficult to deny. Injustice, of course, persists. But we can inch forward. Then there's the baseball theory of justice. Okay, baseball teams are built on the complementary principle. You need pitchers and you need defenders to prevent runs. You need big players who smack home runs. You need small players who steal bases to score. A diverse and balanced team will go to the World Series. A team composed of perfectly equal players would be an absolute disaster and a loser. So for this reason, sports is fixated on statistics that measure and compare inequalities. So in this case, everyone benefits from diversity and everyone benefits from inequality. Thomas Jefferson presumed that life outcomes would differ radically. He envisioned a natural aristocracy of individuals superior in talent, but also in integrity, whom a wise electorate would empower to manage the affairs of the nation. We need only reflect on the wretched character of our current elites to conclude that this Jeffersonian dream, if it were ever realized, would become another saving grace of inequality. That's Martin Gurri.
New York hotel Thursday while holding her 8-month-old son in one hand and a glass of water in the other.
Britney Spears is on the hot seat.
You were photographed, I guess, by the paparazzi again, pursuing you. And there was Sean on your lap in the car.
Yeah.
Take me through what happened there.
I went to Starbucks and I see a bunch of photographers and I'm scared and I want to get out of the situation and my baby's crying. They're coming up on the, the sides of the car, which is a scary situation for me, and they're banging on the windows and that's not something I want my baby to, so I get my baby out of the car and I go home. So, and I just feel like they're taking cheap shots.
Yeah, so is it misogynistic or unfair to notice the reckless way that she has behaved with regard to her family and with regard to herself and with regard to her kids? She says her father used to drive with her in
You've
his
got
lap
all these
as a
legitimate
child.
people way.
Well, times have changed, so all sorts of reckless behavior, judging by today's standards, is no longer socially acceptable.
In saying, you know what? That's dangerous. And she put her child at risk. You saw the questions that were being asked. Is Britney a bad mom?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's America for you.
Britney has 2 kids almost back to back. She has her second baby just about a year after having her first baby. There's a lot of speculation over whether Britney and Kevin have marital.
So if you in a lot of different relationships with a lot of different people, you're going to have a lot of turbulence. When you sleep with different people, things can go wrong very quickly. So apparently Nick Fuentes was mentioned at the
Here's Nicholas
hearings.
Fuentes, a commentator who had organized a Stop the Steal rally in Michigan with Trump supporters.
In the first Million MAGA March, we promised that if the GOP would not do everything in their power to keep Trump in office, then we would destroy the GOP. And as we gather here in Washington, D.C. for a second Million MAGA March, we're done making promises. It has to happen now. We are going to destroy the GOP. Let's go! Destroy the GOP! Destroy the GOP! Destroy the GOP!
Those words, that was Trump's message. Destroy anyone who won't listen, who won't help them take the election for Trump. And as you will see, this was just the preview for Fuentes, who, like the Proud Boys and the Trump caravan organizers, would later heed the president's call and come to Washington and be there on January 6th.
Okay, let's get some more of Elliott's awesome video here. Run through Claire's perhaps rusty CPU. Back to this. New York Times presents Britney divorce, Kevin Federline now.
Problems. And then a few weeks after giving birth to her second child, she files for divorce.
Preston and Jade.
Britney files for sole custody of their 2 kids. The very next day, Kevin files for sole custody himself. And in her book, Britney's mother, Lynn, writes that she thinks Britney was suffering from postpartum depression.
You know.
So I love the title of this Paul Tournier book, A Place for You. So Paul Tournier was a Christian psychologist. So a lot of us are sane in a certain geographic context, and you simply change our place and we become insane. So a lot of us need a particular place. We love a particular place. I think that's called topographia, when you love a place. So in one place we feel at home and we're sane. Take us out of that place, we feel disconnected and insane.
It's what it is. Probate courts have an extreme bias against saving females, young adult women, mostly, from benefiting from their own choice in life. And, you know, the fans of Britney Spears in that documentary, they raised some points around the fact that, hey, this never happens to guys. There's not a single guy who ended up in probate court because he had too many sexual partners. Never happened. But it regularly happens to women. So check your misogyny, you know. It's weird that I come with this argument, but I think they're absolutely right. The probate court system, when it's not applied to old people who suffer from actual dementia or something.
Okay, so what could be some examples of why someone who's sexually promiscuous does not want courts and conservatorships getting involved, right? Traditionally, women were held in a type of conservatorship precisely to shield them from sexually predatory men, right? We understand that men, generally speaking, want to bang everything that's young and attractive. And so society is generally regarded, young women in particular, with sort of a conservatorship. And it's only in the past century, only in the past few decades, that women have gained increasing freedom. But with their increasing freedom, they then become more susceptible to sexually predatory men. And so society will collapse, right? If everybody had my sex life, or if everybody had JF Gariepy's sex life, society would collapse. So this is not me judging JF. This is me judging me, saying that if everybody had the number of sexual partners that I've had, society would absolutely collapse. And so for a while there in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we had a growth in sexual freedom. But then since the 1990s, we've had the rise of political correctness. And one of the functions that it serves is to protect women from sexually predatory men.
When it's applied to young females to control their reproductive choices, which is what happened in my life. I was in a romantic relationship with someone who got kidnapped, and under the pretense by her father that she couldn't decide what she was doing, and she could. She was an adult. So this whole system exists to deny the liberty of females to engage in reproductive behavior. And with Britney, it exists on top of.
So society obviously has an interest in who women reproduce with. So I don't think it's weird that society has long had kind of a conservatorship over young women's sexuality.
Of it to control her wealth and her access to her own children, which she has already produced, 2 children, which are currently under full custody of her husband. So when females go against their father's wishes, they end up in these systems very often. And if you're not careful...
And that's the way it's been for thousands of years. So for thousands of years, society did not regard women as being responsible enough, moral enough, wise enough to handle decisions about their own sexual choices.
Careful, it can happen to you. Okay. Destetner says, but Britney is 39. That's a young woman, Jeff. 39, she's been under this conservatorship for 13. That puts her at 26 when it started. And so it started at 26. It's a young woman at 26, yes, to some extent.
Yeah, it's like men who embrace the right to abortion for women because they want women to be able to destroy any potential offspring from their sexual congress.
The main thing that people became fascinated with was her sort of unraveling. Fascinating to not just, you know, your typical celebrity fan base, but just to anyone.
Let them through. Britney in Paris hooked up with party girl Lindsay Lohan.
Right, so you get judged by who you hang out with. So Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, known for making terrible choices. Britney obviously made terrible choices in hanging out with them.
There we go.
She's basically starting to...
And this is the New York Post with the headline, Bimbo Summit. And there's Lindsay, Britney, and Paris at a LA late night spot.
lose interest in the very carefully managed image of Britney Spears as a pop star. And at the same time, tabloid culture,
So this is why Western society and most societies of which I'm aware have long held women in conservatorship because they can go from responsible to irresponsible just like that. And the problem with today's current system of freedom is that there's nothing to catch people once they start to descend. If your family's not there, and if your society's not there, and if your relatives are not there to catch you when you start to plunge, then you go all the way to the gutter.
reaching the height of their powers.
Britney Spears must be paying the babysitter overtime.
The goal is not to sort of, with these kinds of imagery.
So Britney essentially started leading the Girls Gone Wild lifestyle, and she's got 2 young kids. So society has an interest in encouraging young mothers to be responsible.
Be negative about people. It was to enjoy their lives in a somewhat aspirational / relatable way.
Oh, to enjoy their lives going around pantyless and showing off their crotches to paparazzi photographers. So this is Britney coming out of the lavatory. She's swarmed by photographers. And she looks quite upset and uncomfortable and scared. I doubt that the paparazzi treat Meryl Streep this way.
Are you okay, Britney? Cars this way, Britney. Cars this way. Over here, Britney. Your car is here. Are you okay, Britney? You need to move. You need to move. Careful.
I feel you. They shouldn't harass you like that, Britney Spears.
Dude. Hi, Britney. How you doing today? Britney. You look gorgeous.
Hey, Early, stop. Stop it. Relax. Hey, Early. What the fuck?
Yeah, so the news media, they're like a cute puppy dog. One Hollywood producer told me they're like a cute puppy dog until they start biting you. So there's no blessing that does not come with a curse. Doesn't say in the Torah, I give you this day a blessing or a curse. It says, I give you this day a blessing and a curse. All blessings come with curses, and curses often come with blessings. And that's certainly true for fame.
Man, stop it! Stop it! Stop! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Britney's saying, I'm scared.
Backing up. Let her in.
Okay, here's old hype.
All right, I was sick and I wanted to make this video about 2 days sooner, but I seem to be getting over it, and so I'll just post this before the month is out. Okay, so there's a relation between IQ and income, and for most of the population, over a large enough population of time, it scales. The squared correlation is around 0.4, meaning the variance in IQ explains about 0.4 of all variance in income, 40%, as far as we can tell. And these relations get higher the more longitudinal it is and the bigger and broader the sample is. This is also why any particular number isn't that important. People say, oh, the real number's higher or lower, because extend the time scale far enough and the relation will tend towards 1. But in any particular year, it's around 0.4 for general variance between individuals, and at least in the 1990s, the median income by racial groups were totally in line with IQ, i.e. a black with an IQ of 90 earned, on average, about as much as a white with an IQ of 90. So I say all this, but then I've also said wealth is luck. And that's not entirely true, but a doctor makes more than a construction worker. Okay, that's understood. When I said wealth is luck rather inartfully, I was talking about Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, and Michael Bloomberg. Are these people innovative?
And Babylonian Hebrew enters the chat and say, Luke, play 5 to 10 minutes of this video. It's a pretty good explanation why billionaires don't deserve what they have. Okay, so first of all, that term don't deserve is entirely subjective. There's no objective meaning to don't deserve. So all moral systems are entirely dependent upon some kind of subjective leap of faith. I think you'll have a very difficult time responding to these arguments, says Babs. I'm curious to hear what you think. Well, I am flattered that you're interested in what I think.
Okay, well, let's look at Amazon. Was Amazon the first online retailer? No, just go to the Wikipedia page. Now, about as soon as the internet came into existence, in fact, before the internet, as we know it came into existence, there were electronic purchases. Individual companies had all sorts of methods for people to electronically purchase products, all using telephone lines, going back to the early 1970s. The first general retailers that I know of in the UK, there was CFAX, and that started in 1977.
Wait, so he thinks this is a powerful point, that Amazon wasn't the first to sell things over the internet? What does it matter if they were first or 151st? There's no moral meaning. You're not any more or less deserving if you're the first or you're the 51st or you're the 1,000,051st. So that seems like a pointless point.
This was followed by Oracle and Prestel in 1979. And these were services that had an online catalog that customers could access and purchase stuff on a terminal made for the service, right? So you got so the hardware and software were a single thing. You bought it on like the special, on a CFAX terminal. In France, they had service in 1977 called Antiope. In Canada, also in 1977, they had a service called Norpac. In Japan, they developed a similar service called Captain in 1978. And the United States didn't have an online retail service until 1982 with a program called StarText. Telecom Australia was launched in 1985 in Australia and New Zealand. Ireland began adopting the French Mintel system in 1988. These were all hardware-specific services. You had to use a Mintel machine to access the Mintel network. And all these services were classed as a kind of videotex service. So these are the videotex online retail services. And while technically they can be called a kind of internet, in that it was computers talking to each other over a network and traffic was routed all over the place to access servers, it wasn't the internet with the GUI browsers and accessing, public website that Bob made. It wasn't that internet as we know it. In 1994, NetMarket was launched, and that was the first online retailer as we conceive of it on the public internet that you could go through Netscape, for example. And that same year saw the launch of the Internet Shopping Network. Amazon was founded a year later in 1995. Now, Jeff Bezos didn't invent online commerce. He wasn't the first to market, but maybe he was the best at it. Now, in one sense...
Okay, so it doesn't matter whether you invent something that has nothing to do whether you're first or a millionth than first to develop something. And let's have a look at. Oh my God, that's the last thing that poor female hitchhiker saw.
That's right. So I was sensing a little jealousy, Luke, that that I hadn't called in from my phone and streamed with you as I have with Claire. So I felt like I had to balance the scales.
Yeah, now I mean, it's crystal clear, mate. I mean, it's just the quality is stunning, and it's stunning and brave.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very brave, Elliott.
Well, I'm walking, right? Do you want me to turn it around? Do you want to see what I'm seeing, or do you want to do that?
I just want you to be happy, Elliott.
Works both ways for me, Luke. Well, we'll do a little facial shot because we got to talk about beards. So
okay,
about 3 months ago, right after the election, for some reason I stopped shaving. I don't know why. And so I figured, well, what the hell? I'll just grow out the beard, haven't done this for a long time. And I feel like it's given me more focus. Now, is this an experience that you've had?
Yeah, so I stopped dyeing my hair and I started growing my beard after I read an essay in Commentary magazine by Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik about how Orthodox Judaism frowns on beards because you become more masculine with a beard. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, and I feel like it's allowed me to sort of develop this exercise regime. It's allowed me to keep to commitments that require, effort and discipline. And I've lost a good amount of weight in the past few months, and
you're looking
really
good.
Been great.
You're really looking good, Elliott.
Oh, thanks, bro. But I got people stopping me and saying the exact same thing. Like people who normally don't really talk to me, but they'll notice and say, "Man, you look like you've lost weight." And it was sort of a silver lining to the otherwise foul clouds of the past 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, if you notice women trying to get back in touch with you, like whatever the reason, they say, "Hey, Elliott, I want to study the Bhagavad Gita with you," or "I want to discuss the Biden administration," or "There's this new downward dog yoga pose that I want to try out," or "I'd like your feedback on my new laptop computer." I mean, these are all probably obvious invitations for sex.
Oh, clearly. Yeah, it helped me align my downward dog, to my posture. Yeah, I used to get that a lot. Then, I put on the weight. And those invitations just stopped flooding my inbox. So here, listen, I'm going to flip the camera.
Yeah, and can you put it horizontal instead of vertical?
Sure.
Thank you.
Like this?
Wow, look at that. That's amazing. Wow, that is so crystal clear. I mean, I can see clearly now. The rain is gone. I can see no obstacles in my way.
Right. Now, doesn't this put LA to shame, Luke?
Yeah, it does. I mean, gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's going to be a bright, sunshiny day.
Yeah, who is that? Who is that? What's her name? Carole King?
Jimmy Cliff. I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's going to be a bright, sunshiny day. Wow, look all around you. There's nothing but blue skies. Look straight ahead. There's nothing but blue skies.
Exactly, Luke. Exactly. Soaring with the eagles, Luke. So, what about the motion? Can you talk? Is the picture steady?
The picture is not steady, but it's not so much the height of the waves; it's the motion of the ocean.
Oh, here, let me see if I can do let me try widen the lens. Can I widen the lens? Well, I don't know. I really didn't have I didn't really have that much to say, Luke. I mean, I really, really wish you'd work on your diet, stop all of this political obsession. I think there's a whole new vista of understanding and self-improvement that you can make through the easy avenue of improving your diet.
And Babylon,
Yeah,
go
turn
ahead,
the camera
Babylon.
to a more blattering angle, Elliot.
Blackering?
Blattering, more blattering angle, as in flattering. Okay, Elliot, question I need to ask on behalf of the people of Fort. Are you a ski bum or a beach bum?
Ski bum.
But yet here you are by the beach.
Well,
or are you the coast?
I am by the coast. So the coast is right over these dunes here. Can you see the dunes, or is the sun in the way? You see?
Amazing, lovely dunes.
Lovely dunes. Yeah, if I had my druthers, I would be skiing, but skiing is 4 hours away in Tahoe. But skiing is the best. It is the most. It's the pinnacle of Goy achievement.
Isn't skiing a little dangerous for men of your age, Elliot?
In the old days it would have been, but now they make it so easy, and there's so much, gentle terrain that they can funnel us towards. It's really, I see much older people, but I've seen people well into their 70s, if not 80s, skiing.
Wow.
But trust me, go that fast, believe me. It's sort of amusing.
So how many times have you been skiing in your life, Elliot?
Oh, hundreds.
And how many bones have you broken?
Only one.
And Babs, how many times has Babs been skiing? Babs still there? Babs is gone. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead, Elliot.
Well, so you see the road that I'm working. You want to talk about skiing? Or you want to talk about something else?
Talk about the road that you're on. It looks like you're taking the road a little less traveled.
So I'm taking this road. This road is normally closed, right? This is closed to pedestrians. Normally, this is a regular automotive road, but they closed it because of COVID. So they turned it into a pedestrian-only street. And for a while there, it looked like this was just a temporary measure. But recently, they just announced that it's permanent, a pedestrian street, which I have mixed feelings about. But I think it's great because I walk here every day. It's a great walk. But politically, I don't like the way it came about. Uh-oh, I lost you.
No, I've got you. It's crystal clear, Elliot.
Okay. So anyway, but yeah, this road is not. I mean, I think COVID has created a revival in personal fitness, at least in San Francisco. I think it's marvelous.
Hey, were you ever part of the venture capital scene?
I interact with VCs, but I'm not a member of that community. But
do you feel the excitement? Do you feel the Silicon Valley venture capital excitement? I mean, does it like zap you?
No, it's the most boring thing in the world, believe it or not. It's all about, cap tables, repayment schedules, really boring shit.
So when's your app coming out? I know it's been approved on the iPhone store, the iTunes store.
My personal app? Well, I have a couple of apps I'd like to write, but I haven't had time because I've been so busy with work. But I did have an idea for an app I was going to bounce off of you. Can we do that?
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's see what you and the member of the community think. So I think there needs to be an interim there needs to be a new Twitter, but it's not Twitter. It's ultra short essays, and they have to meet a variety of technical requirements. Like each essay needs to have a picture. Each essay has to have 3 and only 3 paragraphs, and and all the sentences have to pass through a grammar check and a spell check. So there's this emphasis on quality and writing discipline that Twitter lacks, right? And it allows people to make an expanded point crisply and concisely and not ramble. So I think Twitter's a bit too concise, and it's just too easy to fire off a tweet, whereas a micro essay might fill a niche. What do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to, we only want cool people using it. I don't think we want to make this, open to just anybody. So I like the idea that you have to use proper grammar, spelling, punctuation. And so we only want good people using this. We don't want losers. Like, you just need one marginalized loser.
You remember when Google was invite only?
Yes.
To get a Gmail account, you had to receive an invitation. This would be the same, but it would start the same way. So it wouldn't be explicitly our political leanings, but it would de facto sort of be that, because anybody invited to join would have to come through us, right? Would have to come through us or someone who came through us, right? We would seed this new master race of microbloggers.
Yeah, because the ethno-state is the friends we make along the way. So, I mean, we need to have good quality people with God control to just ban people if they get out of line, if they advocate criminal or unethical behavior. Like, we just need to get rid of those people instantly. But then we'll build up our own virtual ethno-state, and everyone around the world, depending on the quality of their character, can be a part.
Right. And like the first, say, 100 users would be sort of birthright users, right?
Yeah.
And they exercise editorial control on anyone downstream from them, but only their own genealogy. So if you trace your lineage from an invitation to only people, I could only control people who ultimately can owe their introduction from me. See what I mean?
That's good. Yeah. Everyone's got to be responsible for their invites. And if you invite bad people, then you got to, you may have to pay the ultimate penalty.
That's right. So, I don't know. I was musing about it. It seemed like an interesting idea. And the idea hasn't gone away, which tells me that it has some merit, but I don't know. Can it really take on Twitter?
Well, it'll be the quality of the people who participate. This is a bit like Clubhouse. Have you joined Clubhouse yet? Have you gotten an invite to Clubhouse?
I haven't, but I like that idea. I love the idea of that. And I love the idea that it was been infiltrated by a New York Times reporter and then ratted out. So I guess what I'm pitching is sort of like it is the Clubhouse model. Maybe that is the new model for the post-Trump election media landscape.
And maybe people have to answer 3 random IQ test questions in a row correctly to be able to participate.
That's an interesting angle. Hadn't considered that, but that is a good one.
And what are some other ways to keep losers away? Because you just need one mentally ill person to ruin a great thing.
Well, how about a vocabulary test?
Yeah.
Instead of a few tests.
I know. You have to have a credit score over 800.
No.
Why not?
I don't think you can get over 800 unless you own a home. Is that true?
No. I've got a credit score of like 820, and I don't own anything. So I think a credit score over 800, because in my life experience,
Do you have to go to home, or you have to be an Orthodox Jew?
you just have to be a responsible citizen, much like myself. You know, I'm a very respectable man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, minimum credit score of 800, because all the people I know with a great credit score are just good people. And if you can't maintain at least an 800 credit score, I just don't think I got my doubts.
See, I think the most interesting, entertaining people have shitty credit and are degenerate gamblers.
Oh, I can't stand these people.
No,
really?
They have the best stories to tell, and they enjoy telling them.
Yeah, we can allow people to amuse us, but that doesn't mean we invite them into our ethno state, bro. Like maybe they can have like a pass for, you know, some parties, but they can't stay in our ethno state. They have to go back.
Like we could give them a work visa or something.
Yeah, temporary work visa, but only for like matters of hours. They definitely can't stay overnight.
Right. I like your thinking on that. So, what else?
Oh,
is this where great idea?
I downloaded that David Talbot book on San Francisco.
Oh, you did? Are you going to read it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So you know what? It turns out was the founder of Salon.
Yes, I know.
Okay. Yeah. So I think he's I don't like his politics, but I think he's an exceptional writer. I think he's a great writer.
Yes.
And I enjoy the subject matter. And I just decided I am going to start learning about, I go through periods where I really go deep into the history of San Francisco because it is interesting. But I think I'm going to take that up a notch this year and actually start reading and writing about it.
Yeah, I love reading books about LA, or if I lived in San Francisco, I'd love reading books about San Francisco. And it's encouraging to look at your video and see that fat people are getting out there and getting some exercise. I think it's good to see fat people getting out there.
Yeah. But look at these surfers. I mean, these surfers like gods. They're each one of them, surfing immediately makes you fit, good looking. Really envious.
So have you had any chocolate crunch cashew cereal today, or maybe some Crystal Light Classic Orange?
I wouldn't put that shit in my body if you paid me.
So what have you eaten today? I've also had carrot juice and a vegetable juice.
Oh, that's better. Did you have any vegetables that still encased in their original fiber?
Oh, no, that's like too much work, but here, let me... Hang on, I'm going to grab my...
Okay, you can regale you with the afternoon sun.
Okay, so this is Suja vegetable juice. It's 80 calories, 18 grams of carbs, 4 grams of protein. It contains organic celery juice, organic cucumber juice, organic collard greens juice, organic lemon juice, organic kale juice, organic green chard juice, organic parsley juice, organic ginger juice, organic romaine lettuce juice, organic green leaf lettuce juice, organic tea, purified water, organic peppermint tea leaf, organic spearmint tea leaf, organic spinach juice. Just $5.
That's a lot of organic for $5.
Well, there's so much goodness in this drink, my friend. But enough about me. Yeah.
So if you get a juicer, you could just make this. And the difference between fresh juice and something that's been sitting around for 3 days is night and day. You have to put a little work into this. I'm sorry to say.
I give live streaming all my efforts, so I'm not really into preparing, and I mean, just cleaning up after juicing is just way too much bother.
No, I hear you there. But when I have one of those juices that I make myself, I mean, I feel it instantly. It feels like a surge of power. And I just simply don't get that from these off-the-shelf,
Or you can get this from Amazon. You can get this from Amazon, my friend. This Suja organic vegetable juice,
You're
just $5.
deliberately trying to provoke me, aren't you? You're deliberately trying to provoke me.
So, what have you eaten today?
Okay, I've had 2 cups of coffee and 3 black bean tacos that I made myself.
So good.
They're with avocado, onion, and cilantro. And 3 was probably a bit too many. I could have done 2 and been fine. But I had to sort of, it was there. Rather than put it away, I decided to eat it. This is a bad habit.
Yeah, I got that habit too. Wow, Ethan Ralph has joined Clubhouse. He got an invite from Jack Posobiec.
So are you on Clubhouse, Luke?
No, I'm not. I'm waiting for my invite.
To be invited? Okay, it's still invitation only.
Yeah, I thought Peter Thiel would have sent me an invite by now.
It's probably busy. I'm sure it's right the next thing on his to-do list.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll get around to it any day now.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you watching these days? You don't watch movies, so you're watching TV shows? What are you watching aside from live streams? What do you watch like at 8, 9, 10 o'clock? What do you watch like 2 hours before you go to bed?
Nothing, Luke. I conk out. I go right to, as soon as I hit the bed, like I'll flip on some sort of stream or something, or usually some sort of music, some kind of mellow music, and then I'm asleep within 20 minutes.
Wow. What time do you go to bed?
Really early, embarrassingly early.
Like what, 8 o'clock?
Like 8 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually go to bed around 8.
I get up at around 5.
Yeah,
sometimes 4:30, sometimes 5:30, sometimes 6, but usually around 5. And then, for a while there, I was coming down here and doing a super early morning walk. But I only do that if the sky is clear. If the sky's not clear, it's just enough to keep me from doing it. And then I do it in the afternoon, like I'm doing now.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of sunshine where you are. So here in LA, we got sunshine 90% of the days.
Yeah, that's true. There's more sun down in LA, but there's a pretty substantial amount up here as well, especially in the wintertime. But in the summertime, this is all fogged in. This is all gray every single day. It's really depressing. So that's where LA wins. It's one of the few narrow categories where LA has it on San Francisco.
And how much time have you spent in Los Angeles?
Well, I have family in Irvine, in Orange County. So, like, physically within the environment, like physically within LA, but when we leave, I'm so happy to be gone, I'll tell you that. LA's ugly, Luke. It's just plain ugly.
Is this just because you got raped in LA? Is that what happened?
No. Look at this. This is what I'm accustomed to, Luke. When I go to LA, I feel like I'm in some sort of science fiction, post-apocalyptic hellscape. I have very delicate visual sensibilities. They're easily offended.
Yeah, a lot of gay men have that.
Very good. Touché. So,
go ahead.
Well, I heard there's a joke about LA that my auntie told me, and she's lived in Southern California for 40 years, and she says, LA is the world's largest hick town. What do you think about that?
Well, there's some truth to it. So LA is lower IQ than San Francisco. I mean, somewhat dramatically, because Southern California got a lot more of peasants from a certain country that not allowed to name than San Francisco. So San Francisco has comparatively few members of certain low IQ groups.
Yeah, that's gross. I also think that, the Okies and Arkies and the Dust Bowl, a lot of the Dust Bowl population wound up in LA.
Yeah.
And I think they went to Las Vegas first, because Las Vegas used to be the place where if you couldn't get a job anywhere else, you could always get a job in Las Vegas, working in the service industry. And then once you're in Vegas, you're really not that far from LA. What do you think of that hypothesis?
Sure. I don't know much. So I lived in Northern California for most of 1977 to 1993, and so Northern California and Southern California are like two different countries. So starting about 1982, when MTV came out, that's when I started fetishizing Los Angeles, because most music videos seem to be shot in LA. So I love the sunshine in LA. I love the vibe in LA. Northern California is, fairly aggressive in its hatred for Southern California, but there's nothing like that vice versa. Like there's no energy in Southern California about hating any other geographic locale. So I like that. Also, people in LA don't try to appear like less affluent than they are. If they want to drive a Jaguar, they drive a Jaguar. If they want to dress up, they dress up. So in Northern California, they're much more aggressive about kind of a grungy or a natural look.
Yeah, that's true. I've also heard that a lot of Northern California was settled by New Englanders, actually.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah, and there's a certain lack of ostentation that goes on in Northern California that is not present in LA. That makes sense.
It's a little bit like the difference between Melbourne and Sydney. So Melbourne was settled by free settlers. Sydney was settled by convicts. So Sydney's a lot more brash. Melbourne's a lot more refined. So San Francisco is more refined than Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a lot more like Australia. So in climate, and I spent years in landscaping, so I love that in Southern California you can grow anything. There's virtually never a frost here, and so you have a lot wider range of plant life.
Yeah, a lot of eucalyptus down there, or are they only up here?
Oh, a lot of eucalyptus in Southern California.
Yeah. It's a big question. It's a big question about what to do with it.
I just go ahead.
Well, I know you grew up in the Auburn area, right? I would drive through Auburn and I would seriously consider moving there. It seems like to be like the perfectly spotted town. Right in the bottom of the mountains, at the same time, not without those severe winters that the mountains get. Is this an incorrect analysis?
No, that's true. Like Sacramento and Auburn, the foothills, where I spent most of 1990 to 1993, you'll typically get 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 days in a row where the temperatures top 100 degrees. And the numbers of days a year that temperatures drop the top 100 degrees in Los Angeles are like 3, or at least on the west side. So it's just aggressively, brutally hot in the summer, and then it's cold and dark in the winter. So in Los Angeles, you can wear shorts and T-shirts, pretty much 90% of the time. Go ahead.
But even Auburn, isn't that up the hill a little bit? So aren't you protected from that high heat in the summer, or is it just as hot?
No, it's brutally hot in summer. You'll have 10, 20, 30, 40 days in a row with temperatures over 100 degrees in the daytime. They don't drop below about 80 degrees at night.
Oh, man, I'm glad I didn't do that. That's just absolute hell.
And pretty bad air quality.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, I guess I won't be moving there.
I mean, people move there to get away from black people, God forbid, disavow. And so it's very redneck, and it's relatively cheap real estate.
Okay.
So in my high school of like 1,600 kids, there are maybe 10 black kids.
Oh. So it wasn't that you were unenriched?
Yeah, we weren't enriched, and just a really pathetic lack of diversity. I mean, there weren't even that many Latino kids. There were maybe, 50 Latino kids. We didn't even think about them as a group. It was just everyone was aggressively redneck white.
Oh, that must have been hard.
Oh, and they often said they sometimes said racist things. Like they talked about white guy basketball versus black guy basketball. I mean, they noticed things that you're not supposed to notice.
Oh.
But this
now
is,
I understand. Now it makes sense to me why you wanted to move to LA. Now
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, I want to enjoy diversity. But I'm talking here. I went to high school in 1980 to 1984, and I left the Auburn area in 1993. Whenever I start driving back to Sacramento, I just feel so sad. It's just like a gloom that settles over me. So a little bit like your experience with Southern California. Now, I lived in the Napa Valley for 3 years, and that was heaven. I absolutely loved the Napa Valley.
Huh. It's pretty warm there, though, if I can recall.
Yeah, well,
but-
I was in Angwin, Pacific Union College, so we're up in the hills a bit. It was not nearly as aggressively hot as Sacramento and Auburn. Once it snowed that I remember there, but it's just the people. Like for me, people is more important than anything else. So my life is largely revolved around Orthodox Judaism. So there's a very large Orthodox Jewish community in Los Angeles, and there's only a very weak, fragmented Orthodox Jewish community in San Francisco. So for me, if I love the people, everything else is secondary to that.
Yeah, it does make a difference. But look at this, Luke. Do you really need those Jewish neighbors? I mean, wouldn't you like to look at this every day?
No, not really. I love my Jewish neighbors. I love my Orthodox Jewish neighbors. I love the Orthodox Jewish community in Los Angeles. I mean, that's far more important to me than locales and sites and hiking and every other consideration in the world. Like life is with Orthodox Jews. That's where it's at. When was the last time you were in an Orthodox synagogue, Elliott?
Never an Orthodox. I was once invited to a Reform synagogue, and I went. And the only thing I recall was that the guy in front of me, this was in Boston, he had a New England Patriots kippah on, which I thought was amusing and a bit sacrilegious.
How tall are you, Elliott?
Oh, I'm a towering Adonis, Luke. It's hard to measure.
Do you know how to swim?
Yes.
Okay.
Quite well, actually.
Okay, and is your mother Jewish?
No.
No.
Father is Jewish.
Okay, father's Jewish. So, do you consider yourself Jewish?
Partially. I've resonated with like Jewish humor. I feel like it's the true humor. If that makes any sense. Like the it's hard to put your finger on, but the sense of irony that Jews have, I really relate to. But I don't feel as though I fit. You know, I don't really feel like I'm a member of the tribe in life. Does that make any sense? Yeah.
Huh. And most of your friends Jewish or Goyish?
Most are Goyish, I'd say.
And are you cut or uncut?
Oh, cuts and fursuit. Very
cut.
Very clinically though, not ceremonially.
And have you ever been religious?
Judaism?
No, any
No.
religion.
In a formal sort of like go to church every Sunday type of way? You mean?
Yeah.
I can't say that I have.
So do you believe that? Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you believe that Jesus may have been God?
I believe Jesus may have been one with God.
In a way that you couldn't be, or in the same way that you or I can be one with God?
I believe in the way that you or I could. I believe that I believe what's attributed to Jesus can be achieved by anyone, but it's very rare and very hard to do. If that makes any sense.
And do you believe in a one creator God who created the universe and holds people accountable for their behavior and rewards and punishes both in this life and in the world to come?
As an act of will?
Yeah.
No. But I believe something's it's effectively that. Let's put it that way. I believe that we are in a lattice of moral responsibility that we cannot escape from. It's like the web that has no weaver.
So karma is essentially written into the DNA of the universe.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I believe. You can't hide. There's no place to hide. But
and so how do we know what is right and what is wrong?
Intuition primarily, but then there are also ethical teachings that provide guardrails. So it's somewhat of an open, it's a tough question. I'm trying to answer it well, and I'm not doing that. But I don't believe that there were laws promulgated that accurately and completely describe morality. However, the dominant themes of morality are pretty well understood by all cultures, and they also sort of accord with our own intuition. So, if that makes any sense.
And whose moral teachings? Like, where do we find this?
Any of the epic literature that's lasted through millennia, to me, is a valid source of wisdom. So it really doesn't matter which you choose, because at the end of the day, although they're superficially they may seem different, I think if you peel back the layers, they're really the same.
Does it bother you that according to Orthodox Jewish law, you are not Jewish?
It does not bother me.
And what's your approach to the Jewish question? What do you, first of all, what do you understand is the Jewish question?
Oh, the Jewish question. Well, anything I know about it, I've learned over the past few years on your stream. So I think I more or less share your opinion, and you want me to state them explicitly. Jews, I follow. They have a middleman, middleman minority, who practice in-group morality and out-group morality, and they're not always aware of the impact that this has on their host countries, and this can sometimes sadly lead to problems.
Now, have you had firsthand experience with people who have in-group, out-group morality, and have you had firsthand experience with people who believe in universal morality?
Yeah, well, I grew up in New England, and there, which was 99% Protestant, and universal morality was the way of the world, was simply the natural way to be. I didn't even realize there was a way to have an in-group morality until I got to the big bad city, and I would see in-group morality in action, and I found it very distasteful.
Now, have you noticed any group aside from WASPs, usually of Northern European heritage, who believe and practice universal morality?
Do I know of or have I experienced?
Do you know of any, and have you experienced any other groups aside from WASPs who practice universal morality?
I don't know of any.
Yeah, I'm not sure there are any. So do you think that creates, say, a bit of a challenge? Let's say you've got WASPs create societies such as the United States, Australia, England, where all the creators of the society believe in universal morality, and then they start allowing in people who practice tribal morality. You think that might cause some problems?
I'm sad to say that it does, and I'm sad to say that we've observed it. And what's even more saddening is that members of the universal morality tribe, shall we say, really feel like it's their moral duty to maintain this universal morality, even when they're being taken advantage of. And it's going to basically snap back and create a lot of resentment. And I'm not, I fear the outcome of that. I don't want to be swept up in it either.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the long and winding road in your video, this long and winding road that leads to your door. It makes me feel happy that it will never disappear. I've seen that road before. It always leads me here. It leads me to your door. The wild and windy night that the rain washed away has left a pool of tears crying for the day. Why leave me standing here, Elliott? Let me know the way. Many times I've been alone, and many times I've cried. Anyway, you'll never know the many ways I've tried. And still, they lead me back to the long, winding road. You left me standing here a long, long time ago. Don't leave me waiting here, Elliott. Lead me to your door, but not in a gay way. But still, they lead me back to the long, winding road. You left me standing here a long, long time ago. Don't keep me waiting here. Lead me to your door, but not in a gay way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How long is this road that you're on?
Well, I just turned around. I don't know if you noticed that, Luke. It was the 2.2 mile mark. So now I'm going back 2.2 miles, leading to a total journey of 4.4 miles, which I have to say is my average performance. But boy, it is a lovely afternoon, I have to say.
And do you have any favorite pop music groups or songs?
I do, but I must say I haven't really listened to even popular music in a couple of years now. But yeah, I was a big fan of the Kinks. You know the Kinks?
Okay, like what songs?
Well, I like a lot of their lesser-known album-oriented rock kind of songs. So I've always said that I think Ray Davis is the William Shakespeare of the 20th century. I think he had an amazing insight to the society he lived in and where things were going. And he actually even predicted this whole sort of techno utopia that we're striving for. So it's an album called Muswell Hillbillies. Have you ever heard of that album?
No.
Okay.
What's your go ahead.
Well, there's a rich mine of interesting music from the 70s that I don't think many people know about. And it's really quite outstanding.
And what's your favorite Anne Murray song?
I don't like it. What is it? She had, this is the stuff that was always on in the background my mother used to listen to. So hum a few bars and I'll remember it.
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to. I cried a tear. You wiped it dry. I was confused. You cleared my mind. I sold my soul. You bought it back for me. And he held me up and gave me dignity. Somehow you needed me. You gave me strength to stand alone again, to face the world out on my own again. You put me high upon a pedestal, so high that I could almost see eternity. You needed me. You needed me.
I remember that one. You needed me. Yes. Joni Mitchell. My sister used to listen to Joni Mitchell. What do you think about Joni Mitchell?
No. What about Air Supply? Do you have a favorite Air Supply song?
I cannot bear Air Supply. It triggers me.
You're kidding me.
It's so gay. It's unbelievable. You're not seriously telling me that you listen to Air Supply.
It's my favorite group. I mean,
joking.
No. I know just how to whisper, and I know just how to cry. I know just where to find the answers, and I know just how to lie. And I know just how to fake it, and I know just how to scheme. I know just when to face the truth, and then I know just when to dream. And I know just where to touch you, woman, and I know just what to prove. I know when to pull you, woman, closer, and I know when to let you loose. And I know the night is fading, and I know the time's going to fly, and I'm never going to tell you everything I've got to tell you, but I know I've got to give it a try. And I know the roads to riches, and I know the ways to fame. I know all the rules, that I know how to break them, and I always know the name of the game, but I don't know how to leave you, and I'll never let you fall, and I don't know how you do it, making love out of nothing at all. Tell me that's not beautiful.
Oh, you just like them because they're Aussies. They have sentimental attachment to them.
I got a smooth singing voice, bro, because I keep it moist with classic Crystal Light Orange.
Okay, this is what I was going to tell you, Luke, about this. Okay. You tell me you have this CPAP machine or device, right?
Yeah.
That's because you're creating too much phlegm in your lungs, and it's interrupting your breathing. That's why you wake up, because you have pools of mucus that get caught in places, and you wake up and you cannot sleep. And the reason you have this phlegm is because you have too much too many sugars separated from their enclosing natural fibers. So if you would stop this sort of, milkshake lifestyle that you lead and ate the proper vegetables, you'd be able to sleep through the night. Because I used to suffer from the same thing. And it's a problem that can be solved, and you can just solve it.
So how do you know you don't suffer from it now?
Because I know, when you wake up and you've been sleeping for a long time versus when you've barely been sleeping?
Yeah.
Most of the time when I wake up, I feel like I've been sleeping for a long time. By a long time, I mean like 5 or 6 hours.
Wow.
And then I'm up for a bit, and then I go back to sleep. But it's very important that you sleep, Lou, because this is where your body repairs itself. After all that hard work you do teaching Alexander technique, you need to repair those tissues. You need to repair that voice. Otherwise, you're going to have long-term systemic damage.
Yeah, sleep is the number one health problem in my life, and has been since my early 20s.
So here's how you turn it around. 1, with diet. 2, you got to take an Epsom salt bath, preferably in the evening. Treat yourself to this little indulgence. This will relax those muscles that need to relax, that will allow you to sleep. And then you'll sleep more deeply, and you'll have more thorough and complete cell repair. You're treating this subject lightly, Luke. And I'm trying to tell you not to treat it so lightly.
Do you like Kenny Rogers?
No. The gambler?
No, lady.
No, I don't like that saccharine stuff, Luke.
Really?
I'm anti-saccharine, diet and in musical taste. So anyway.
What about Babe by Styx? Do you like Babe by Styx?
You're reminding me of my junior high school years. God, it was a torture. Like they would play that music on the school bus, and it would be in the power rotation, so you'd hear it like maybe twice within 45 minutes, like these top 10 songs, and it would just grind them to death. And then this new one, it was really eye-opening, really red-pilling when I learned about how the music industry works. But basically, hits are made; they're not earned. Right? They're sort of a creation, and then they're promoted. And I was under the impression that it was some sort of meritocracy at work, where it's really not. It's a engineering enterprise.
I remember all my life raining down as cold as ice, shadows of a man, a face through a window, crying in the night goes in. Morning, just another day, happy people pass my way. Looking in their eyes, I see a memory. I never realized how happy you made me, oh Mandy. Well, you came and you gave without taking, but I sent you away, oh Mandy. Well, you kissed me and stopped me from shaking, and I need you today, oh Mandy. I'm standing on the edge of time. I've walked away when love was mine. Caught up in a world of uphill climbing. The tears are in my mind, and nothing is rhyming. And let's see Babylonian Hebrew. What's going on, man?
Turn, turn, turn it around. Change the signs. A classic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a pretty good soundtrack to Apricot Sky.
So should we?
That actually might be one of my favorite parts of the film. I like that song. It has serious like modern appeal potential. Like I can see like Gen Z kids listening to it being like, dude, vaporwave or some shit. 90s, man. Change the signs. Such a good song.
Yeah, I wonder if it's on iTunes.
Well, to figure that out, you need to know the name of the song first, which I'm not sure any of us know.
Well, you just put in the lyrics into Google, so...
Believe me, I've tried. Change the signs. Turn it around, even with quotation marks. I'm not having any luck so far, but maybe I'll keep looking.
Huh.
So look, you didn't spend, you haven't kept in touch with any of the cast or crew. They're all
No,
dead.
I didn't sleep with anyone on the movie.
Yeah.
And, so, I mean, I stayed with a producer for a few weeks, but he wanted me to massage his butt. And when I wouldn't do that, he kicked me out.
Why are you so stingy, Luke? He's the producer of your movie.
Yeah, I guess I just wasn't willing to do what needed to be done.
Not the love, Luke. How are you gonna get it? How are you gonna get anywhere in Hollywood with an attitude like that, 40?
I guess I was just too proud. I mean, I'm self-destructive.
Self-destructive, I know, man. And all it took was a few seconds of discomfort, and your career would have been made, 40. You blew it. You blew it.
The movie would have got.
You could have been a somebody, for.
What was the total?
All it took was a little squeeze, Ford. Could have been a somebody.
What was the total budget of Apricot Sky, Luke?
Oh, well, I'm sure all the equipment was already there. I'm sure much of the footage was already in the can, so they didn't pay any of the actors anything. So, I would presume under $1,000.
Oh, wow.
It's an equity investment, Luke. You have to think of it as an equity investment. Plus, let's be real. Like, free publicity. Think of all the publicity. It's great, man. Who doesn't want to do free work for publicity, man?
Well, I learned a lot. I mean, it gave me an opportunity to stretch my acting chops.
So Luke, you didn't write this. You were just an actor.
I was just an actor.
Okay.
I'm not even sure of the story. Did you understand the story?
It was very thin plot. Like the medallion and
the medallion. Karen. Her name is Karen.
Was it a drug
movie?
movie?
Remember that night we danced under the moon? Maybe. Well, okay. I mean, sometimes I felt like I was on drugs because like the audio track would like rapidly fucking oscillate between like low and high volume, and I had to make sure that I wasn't tripping.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it'll just like switch in and out of music. Like I assume this is pre-edit, right? Like the movie never was edited, or is this what they were going to release?
No. Well, no. This is like the crappy version, so it doesn't get plagiarized. I mean, you should see the version like on the big screen. It's like it was so intense.
All right, so let's get our night vision goggles, gloves, cat burglar suits, and grappling hooks, and let's break into the vault where the good version is.
Hey, I was number 2 in the credits behind the Sheila. I was number 2.
Yeah, you had a great showing, man. You were the romantic lead. I'm not sure if you were. Okay, so like from the clips you showed me, like my assumption was that you were the romantic lead of the plot. But upon actually watching it, it's much more kind of like like much more up to interpretation. Like there's this whole subplot going on with like these fucking mafia guys, pardon my language, and you have like, and then you have you and this woman, and then like you guys meet for a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end. What was your knowledge? Like, if you could tell the story of, what's your character's name?
I think it was Len. Is that
if
right?
You could tell Len's story. What do you know of Len's story? Isn't Len the director?
No, I think, well, Len is the director, but yeah, Len Bauman. But I think my character.
Self-insert.
Yeah, I think my character was named Lenny, and I just I think I'm a straight dude, and I just meet a girl and I try to help her out. But I think you have to be high to understand this movie. And Babs, you've done more drugs than the rest of us. So do you think that's correct?
Put together.
Yeah, put together.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helps. It's more of a vibe than anything else, you know, right? So the bit about the medallion had kind of like, it felt a little like Twin Peaks, like it had kind of like a like Twin Peaks-ish, like Josie uncovering the mysteries kind of vibe on one side, and then it also had like this, but it was like this kind of like weird like enigma like shoehorned into the rest of it. Like honestly, like yes, like if you just like look at it as like this kind of what do you call it when it's like it's not a pastiche, that's not the right term. It's like you have this kind of medley of like little vignettes, you know, whatever the term for that is, and you know, it's like, I guess it could be about like, you know, the solitary beauty of life, and I don't know, it's just like there's this kind of has this sentimental vibe about it, maybe. I don't know what about it, and like that scene where you meet this same woman again like later on, or did they just like shuffle the scenes up randomly?
I don't remember, but what many people don't realize is that this movie had a profound effect on David Lynch. It like completely transformed the way he saw life and the cinematic craft. And so just like I made the porn movie What Women Want, and then Mel Gibson like just stole the title from me and like made it a studio version and like just completely cut out the independent, innovative cinematic approach that I took. Instead, he just turned out like mainstream studio schlock. But he stole my title, What Women Want. And then I think David Lynch saw Apricot Sky, and that's what enabled him to create Mulholland Drive.
So that's what happened.
Yeah, not many people realize this.
That mystery is solved. People have been wondering where David Lynch gathered his influence.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand Mulholland Drive, but that's because they have to watch Apricot Sky. Then once you watch Apricot Sky, Mulholland Drive just opens up like an eager starlet's legs.
Well done. Well played, Mr. Ford. Well. Yeah, you hear me starting to pant now.
Okay, Babs, you're back.
I had business to attend to.
Excellent.
So
Panasa.
Yeah, no, it's a good work, you know. All in all, fucking, I'd have an Apricot Sky. I put it on my shelf. Put it right next to the Kevin Michael Gray selection. I put it right next to the Criterions, and you know, on the other side, you have the beginning of my bookshelf. You know, Christopher Lash, Turchin, Burnham, and then maybe Martin Gurri. I'll throw a little Martin Gurri up on that shelf.
Wait, you don't have my A History of X, 100 Years of Sex in Film on your shelf?
No, I keep that one in the restroom.
Oh,
for
yeah.
Guests, in case guests want to just, you know, quickly beat one off before they, like during a party or something.
Wow, I feel honored. But hey, I don't want to ask Kevin.
I hear it's a good book. I hear it's a good book, honestly.
Yeah. I don't want to ask Kevin because it might be a bit awkward, but you think you could get Kevin Michael Grace to do a Theater Thursday on Apricot Sky?
Oh, yes. Yes, actually. I think if I could just get a donation in there, like of the right size, I'm sure it would be. I'm sure he'd entertain that for a second.
This is about the 1 year anniversary of the.
It is. It happened the day of the Super Bowl.
So maybe we should do some sort of, commemorative ritual or something. I remember that. I remember hearing
burn
about
some sage, maybe.
Oh, here we go. Look at this. Look at this action. You see the fire engine storming towards us?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, exciting, isn't it? All right. So this means somebody's drowned.
Prayers. Let's send out prayers that the people who need help, they get help.
Oh my God, this must be a big action. There you go. There you have it.
That's pretty intense. Maybe somebody made a mean tweet.
Could or maybe someone got wind that Apricot Sky was being discussed.
Yeah.
Interesting. They're like, where's Ford? Where's Ford? Let me at him. Oh,
wow,
boy.
this is pretty serious.
Yeah, you see the beach? This means like a surfer has drowned, and they're gonna go rescue him. This is the drill. This happens about once a month.
And do you go swimming much?
I was doing it for a while pre-COVID, and then I got too fat to fit into my wetsuit, so I had to stop. And then I had to start. The whole purpose of walking was to lose enough weight to fit into my wetsuit.
Do you think that drugs would help make Apricot Sky more intelligible?
It wouldn't hurt. It was a very thin plot. Let's be honest here. Hard to decide.
I feel like it was incomplete. I think that you're not being fair to it. I think that really what we saw is like a chopped up version. Like this wasn't the polished director's cut edition. Like we've been blue balled, and like it's kind of you can tell it's been like spliced up, so it's not as good. Like maybe the real Apricot Sky has a bit more to it in terms of plot coherence, but perhaps this is just like apricot apologia. So I don't.
No, it's like Apricot Sky is a lot like Christianity. It's never really been tried.
Or communist.
But I think there's a little Apricot Sky in all of us just waiting to break out. Oh, I remember this scene where I do it with my shirt off. I'm like deliberately sucking in my stomach.
You look better now than you did back in the Apricot days. Maybe you should shoot another film.
Yeah. I just need to
Don't
find.
you agree? Like, look at Luke's face. Like, your skin and your face just seems like thinner and more defined. You know, you just seem like almost more vibrant. Like, even compared to the videos from 10 years ago, you actually, in some ways, seem younger. It's very strange.
I need another Lenny Bauman. You know, people like Lenny Bauman don't come along every day. Sorry, Elliot.
So how long after Nardil, the first inaugural dose of Nardil, was this film made?
Okay, so yeah, I was on Nardil when I made this. But what was the question? I'm sorry.
So how many years after your first, after you got off the couch?
Oh, yeah. So I think I took my first Nardil just after Yom Kippur 1993. Maybe October 1993. And then I started feeling much better I moved out. Yeah, here I'm sucking in my stomach in this topless shot. So I slowly start feeling better. I took Nardil on a Shabbos morning, and a friend picked me up, took me to shul, and I lasted like all morning at shul. This is my car, my 1977 Datsun station wagon, but the tires were bald, and one rainy night I was rushing to work on a scene with this really hot actress. I thought I had a really good chance to get social with her, and I think I was a little overexcited, and in the rain, my bald tires, my car spun out, and my 1977 Datsun station wagon went straight into an electric pole, and that was that. And I never got to work on the scene with the actress.
So then you became a pedestrian in the other sense of the word.
Yeah, then I bought a 1982 Dodge van because I wanted to have something that I could live out of. And so I drove a Dodge van 10 miles to the gallon for about 24 years.
Wow. So this is after you got off your you got out of your coma.
Yeah, so
you were functional. You made the film.
Yeah, so I started on Nardil in October of 1993, and I started shooting the film in November of 1994. Or no, October 94, before the landslide Republican election. So it would have been October 1994, before the election, that I started shooting.
I remember that. I remember where I was. I remember hearing about that, contemplating it. The Newt Gingrich.
Yeah, the Newt Gingrich. The contract with America. Babs, you're back.
Just a quick question. Last question for tonight. Nardil.
Yeah.
Is Nardil more of a modafinil? Is it just a modafinil,
No.
or what is it?
No, Nardil is really old. It's like a very old medication. It's better known as phenelzine, and so it's been around since, 1960s, and it's an MAO inhibitor. So there's it's an irreversible monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So let's see when this type of drug
Maui
was.
Wowie.
Yeah, MAOIs. They're not used very much anymore, but I don't know, something like the 1960s. So there are a lot of things that you can't combine with MAO inhibitors, but it's used when everything else doesn't work, for major depressive disorder, for bipolar depression, dysthymia, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, bulimia, post-traumatic stress disorder, and obsessive compulsive disorder. And it's also good for treating prostate cancer.
So, okay, interesting. So how does it make you feel? Do you feel anything from it when you take it, or is it just a difference over time? How noticeable is the difference?
Oh, so it's pretty dramatic. You get this really strong sweet tooth. So you really start to gain weight, and you also lose inhibitions. So all these things that have been lurking in your soul, they start ejaculating.
Wow, beautifully put. All right, I have to have a quick dinner, but I'll be back later on probably. God bless to both of you.
Blessings. So, Elliott, you want to share with us some of your own psychopharmacology?
There's not much to describe, Luke. I'm very low chem. Very low chem.
So you've never been on lithium?
No, never. Never been on any pharmaceutical for anything. Except at the dentist, I took a painkiller a couple of times. And took a painkiller when I broke my arm skiing, but that's about it.
Lithium is awesome. It really evens you out, but it bloats you and you drool a lot. But lithium's just an amazing drug.
Well, doesn't it flatten out your emotions, though?
Yeah, but that could be a good thing.
Can it that?
I was on lithium between 2002 and 2009, so I didn't like the weight gain and I didn't like the drooling, but I liked how it kind of evened me out.
Now, when they say lithium, here's the fire truck. They're not talking about elemental lithium. They're talking about some sort of compound. Is that correct? Or is it truly elemental lithium?
I think it's pretty elemental.
So just.
It's amazing. People who are in insane asylums, after 3 days, you could release them into society, and they can be relatively normal.
How you behave yourself.
Very scary. I have just a strong fear of all that stuff for some reason. I sort of like my bloodstream the way it is. I don't like to put foreign agents into it. I like to build a wall, as it were, between myself and pharmaceuticals.
Have you had any experiences with God?
Store? Why didn't you go to the store?
I believe
with your
so.
Mommy?
Yeah. And
You should
what
go
happened?
talk to Uncle Freddie. Hi.
What happened was,
Can you say that, Uncle Freddie?
it just sort
Yeah,
of
you
dawned
do.
on me that
He's your
the
mommy.
religious view of life was true. Okay, I'll tell you what. You know the phrase, and that, I didn't grow up as a Christian, but I did know the phrase, "the peace that surpasses all understanding."
Yeah.
From the Testament.
Yeah.
I had I guess what I would say is that experience, and so so I said, oh, okay, this is what it is. It was a very subtle shift, Luke. It wasn't like a big thing. It was sort of like I got a little glimpse into the whole thing, right? And everything was fine. Like everything was fine, and everything was peaceful. At the core of at the core of all of our experience, everything is peaceful. So, did you ever read The Dharma Bums from Jack Kerouac?
No.
Okay, so it's one of his lesser known books, but there's a scene in that book where, so all the names in that book are thinly disguised people, thinly disguised aliases of real people. So his co-star in that book is a guy named Jaffe Ryder, who is really Gary Snyder, who is sort of like this 60s poet figure. And they took a trip to the Sierra Nevada, up to where you were living, but they went up the mountains. And there's a scene where Gary Snyder is running down the hill screaming in ecstasy, and he just keeps screaming, "You can't fall off the mountain. You can't fall off the mountain. You can't fall off the mountain," over and over. So he had this epiphany. And I basically had that epiphany.
Wow.
Understand?
Yeah. And
So,
when was this?
This was 1993, 4, 2, right around this, right around the Apricot Sky period, but a little before Apricot Sky. Basically, when you were on the couch, Luke.
Yeah.
So we were having divergent life experiences.
And it stayed with you?
No, it stayed with me for like maybe 6 hours. But then when I woke up, I got home, went to bed. It was with me. It was like this presence that was with me. It wasn't like this momentary insight. It was like this solid, abiding presence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I was under a lot of financial stress at the point. I was living really hand to mouth, right? So I don't think you can have that experience unless you're under that amount of duress, because you sort of break at a certain level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I kept thinking, it was right around Christmas time too, and and it was sort of right in the midst of Christmas shopping season. So I was walking home. I couldn't afford a bus ticket, remember? So I had to walk like 2 miles through the city because I didn't have enough money. I didn't have like $1.25 to ride a bus. So as I'm walking through, I see all these people driving, and they're facing me, and I look into that. I could see in their eyes, and they look just dead asleep right behind the wheel. So they just seemed like mannequins driving cars. Like they seemed really dead, dead while living. So, which is something that, do you know who Gurri is? You ever heard of Gurri?
Yes.
So I read those books, in my teens or late teens, and I remember him describing that experience. And so I had that experience as well. I just sort of wanted to wake them up, to like tune into this better vibration that they seem to have just chosen not to tune into. But it just seemed like everyone was making a really poor choice, and that they could just as easily have made a better choice to have this insight, And I was like, I kept checking myself, am I dreaming? Am I crazy. I kept going through the checklist, and it was no. It was like this solid, continuous presence. And I just thought that would be the new reality that I had, but it went away.
And do you have ways of getting back there?
Theoretically, yes, but practically, it doesn't seem so. Because now I'm, it's like the career grind just takes it out of you.
Yeah.
In my experience, you just start, as soon as you start engaging with the mundane economics of daily life, you just sort of get swallowed up by the mundane version of life. And it just takes, I don't know, it's a regret of mine. I could have done more, I guess, to cultivate that, but I just kind of got lost with making a living.
And
at the same time, I always have the memory. I'm like, well, I could eventually put this all back together and get back there. It's like I'm in a sort of exile, and I sort of know the exile was just also temporary, and that I could sort of someday end the exile. If that makes any sense.
And what about meditation? You practice?
I used to a lot, and now it's very intermittent. And only because, like I say, I don't have energy. I just fall right to sleep. I collapse. And I sort of just always counted on having a lot of physical energy, but getting older, you lose that. So it's a cautionary tale to all you kids watching at home.
Maybe some Anne Murray songs might get you back there.
Well, let's give it a shot, yeah. So this whole walking thing is an attempt for me to kind of. I used to be a competitive cyclist in high school. I used to be very, very fit.
Wow.
Like ridiculously fit. And I didn't realize how easy it was to lose that.
Babs,
I think that
Go ahead.
the Suja cold pressed juices you can get in bulk from Costco at a pretty reasonable price.
So good.
But yeah, a juicer is the best investment though, seriously, because it's like, for me, it's just chewing, pain in the ass to eat all those damn fruits and veggies. Much easier to just make them into some pulp and sort of sludge it down my throat.
Oh, beautifully put, Babs. And Elliott, when did you first get online?
I got online in, I want to say 1994. It was AOL. So put it this way. I'd worked this, I don't want to say shit job, but it wasn't a good job, for like a solid year. And I managed to save $1,500, after all the other expenses. I managed to save $1,500, and I bought like this, by today's standards, just crappy Windows computer that was really just an eye-opening experience. It's really I really felt like it was a seismic change in my life that I got to make. I sort of kind of intuited like what it all meant. Like where it was all going just by this one experience, by being on a computer online. And I just sort of could kind of extrapolate to what it would all lead to.
And so was it an amazing transformative experience?
It was. Okay, so my father was a software dude, one of the rare way back in the punch card days. So I grew up around computers, but I never really had an interest in them, and I kind of hated them. But word got around. AOL had offices here, and you'd hear people working for AOL, and they would be making, these really handsome salaries. And it really clicked for me that the future was going this way, and if I wanted a shot at a real career, this was my opportunity. So it made sense at many levels, both as a user level, but also it really became clear that this was a viable career direction.
And were you a regular reader of LukeFord.com?
I was not. Didn't do decent. I wonder if I ever came across one of your posts. So in those days, I didn't read a lot of blogs because a lot of blog posts were about Bigfoot and shit like that. It wasn't a place for. There wasn't like a real intellectual culture that had taken root yet in the early days of the internet. But that changed.
So, what were the first blogs that you read, if any?
First blogs? Like non-techie blogs? I mean, like,
Matt Drudge Report?
I heard of it and I saw it and I thought it was a joke. I saw it was just this crude text stuff slapped onto an HTML page. And it just didn't seem like much to me. I didn't recognize the what it would become and the power that it would ultimately wield. So no. What were some of the initial some of the initial marquee blogs that got established in the early aughts?
So Mickey Kaus and Matt Drudge and Instapundit.
Yeah.
So Larry Flint has died. Do you have any favorite memories of Hustler magazine?
Now that's an example of reincarnation. You know what? That's my word. You know what reincarnation is?
It's the opposite of incarnation.
Yeah, it's when somebody dies who you already thought was dead.
Right.
So this is my sole contribution to the English language. Okay, Luke, you're coming on 4.4 miles.
Okay, so I was Hustler Magazine's Asshole of the Month.
No way.
Yep. So
I remember being 15, and I was a dishwasher. This was in the bike racing years. Hold on. And it was like a country inn, and the help got to stay in this little shed with a very crude bed in there. And somebody had stashed a Hustler magazine there, and so I discovered it. And I read the letters to the editor. Do you remember the letters to the editor?
Yeah.
And I used to think they were real, but they were just creative writing. And one of the letters I remember was about a guy who was an avid gardener and then discovered some creative uses for squash.
Yeah.
And the title of the letter was Squish Squash. I got a kick out of that.
Okay, Elliot, I think I might let you go. Any final words?
That's it. I just thought I'd, give you a little seaside stroll, see how my mobile streaming works.
Beautiful. Just stunning and brave.
Rather than show my sort of initial apricot sky attempts, thought I'd give you a more polished product.
Oh, we are thankful.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Take care, my friend. Okay, so in honor of Larry Flint, remember when I was Hustler Magazine's Asshole of the Month? The same self-smiling duality that fouls the inner and outer anus. Each side of Luke Ford's split personality. Luke Ford is a man who can't really say these words, who defecates from two faces. He is Hustler's Holiday 93 Asshole of the Month. Oh shit. Hope that didn't, hope we didn't see anything naughty there. So, okay. Luke Ford has been described as the Matt Drudge of the porn industry. Like Drudge, Ford runs a website that delights in smearing the private lives of public figures, but Ford's personal attacks on porners and his proud disdain for facts make Drudge read like a reporter for the Christian Science Monitor. Ford actively solicits malicious dirt on performers and producers in the XXX world, bragging, "I will print it without worrying about fairness, truth, or accuracy." Aside from unsubstantiated accusations, Ford publishes his own blend of largely inaccurate industry news, bites, and outright lies. Among Ford's dispatches are untrue assertions that the Vivid Girls have AIDS, that Larry Flint pays mob kickbacks, and that FBI agents had arrested leading members of the American porn industry for antitrust violations. After threats of litigation, Ford labeled some of his character assassinations as parody and satire. He believes that his readers are sophisticated enough to sort his deliberate BS from his inadvertent errors. Judging from the feedback of Luke's fans, their level of sophistication is akin to that of the bumbling editor who accepted Ford's 1,000-page manuscript chronicling smut cinema and published it as a 252-page book. Publishers weakly regretted that Luke's tome attained neither coherence nor climax. Most disturbing of all, Ford doesn't appear to be especially well informed on his topic. One of the book's typical false facts is that though many porn stars do have sex with dogs, few permit photos of their escapades. This is like old Luke stuff. Ford claims to have had sex with more than one blue screen actress, a behavior he condemns. I view all forms of sexual expression outside of marriage as sinful. Porn is anti-God. Censorship is one legitimate response to pornography. I would not shed many tears if the porn industry was carted off to jail. Ford, a converted Jew, wants nothing more than to get married to a nice Jewish girl and lead a monogamous Judaic life. Aside from a few tawdry blowjobs, Ford seems to be suffering from the negative effects of a head injury. Okay, that's
I got some information I gotta check.
That's maybe true. Ford's sister blames Luke's lack of insight and balance on glandular fever. Her 33-year-old brother is not the boy he used to be. She finds the aging child's aberrant activities heartbreaking. Who else is disturbed by Ford's behavior? How about the more than 300 porn people whose real names he published? Mark Starr, brother of TV producer Darren Starr, Melrose plays Sex and the City, allegedly punched Ford in the stomach, outraged that Ford had dug up a 4-year-old New York Post story as the basis for accusing Darren of being responsible for a girl who overdosed in a New York City hotel room. Does Darren Starr have a connection to XXX? No more so than John F. Kennedy Jr., who, according to Luke's site, was a notorious homosexual. I create the hatred for me, Luke has said. My problems are not in porn, but in myself. Responding to animosity, real and imagined, Ford posted photos of himself fondling a revolver. The gun owner, who admits, I get therapy once or twice a week for 90 minutes a session, holds the pistol against his nose, gazing off as if he sees Jodie Foster falling in love with him. Oh man, those are the days. Britney Spears.
What do you think it'll take to get the paparazzi to leave you alone?
I don't know. I don't know.
So Britney Spears.
Is that one of your biggest wishes?
In tears here, but wanting the paparazzi to leave her alone.
Yeah.
Good
evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. It's funny how change happens. You thought the big change came on Election Day. That's when the incumbent president lost. But that turned out to be nothing compared to the change that came 2 months later. On January 6th, supporters of Donald Trump swarmed the Capitol building. Some forced their way inside. And Washington has never been the same. It may never be the same. As a result of what happened on January 6th, your descendants will live in a very different country. It was a pivot point in our history looking back. Some in Congress have compared that day to 9/11. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has likened it to Pearl Harbor, the day that spurred America's entry into the Second World War. Every day we hear new and more florid comparisons from Democratic partisans. But last night, CNN outdid all of them. Chernobyl? The Bhopal disaster? The Irish potato famine? No. What happened on January 6th was worse than any of that. It was, CNN told us, very much like the Rwandan genocide.
The idea of otherizing people is something I think we saw a lot of over the last 4 years. I mean, something we've seen a lot over the last decades, but it's so easy to otherize people, to make people other than American, other than patriotic, other than human, and we've seen it in Bosnia, we've seen it in Rwanda, where radio was telling people that, Hutus were telling the radio listeners that Tutsi were cockroaches, for, getting them ginned up for genocide.
The Rwandan genocide, that's what it was like. Keep in mind that close to 1 million people were murdered in Rwanda in 1994. That's about 70% of all ethnic Tutsis in the country. Entire towns were hacked to death with machetes. They were set on fire, crushed alive by bulldozers. Hundreds of thousands of women were raped. It was among the most horrifying crimes in human history. How does a country recover from something like that, from a genocide? Well, first, obviously, you punish the guilty quickly and severely. In our case, you impeach him. But then, and this is more important, you set about reordering your society from top to bottom to make certain nothing like that ever happens again. So you purge the military. You suspend basic civil liberties. To emphasize the point, you send troops to the Capitol. You tear down the old. You destroy all vestiges of the past in order to save the future. That's what's going on now. But hold on. Before we remake America to prevent future genocide at the Capitol, maybe we should know a little bit more about the crime that occurred on January 6th, if only to understand the justification for overturning our lives permanently. What exactly did happen that day? Simple question. You may be surprised to learn how little we know even now. In fact, it's remarkable how many of the most basic questions remain unanswered more than a month after the fact. Let's start with the headline of the day. 5 Americans died on the Capitol grounds on January 6th. You've heard that. You hear it incessantly, including from Republican office holders. 5 dead. But that doesn't really tell you very much. It's the details, as always, that matter. Who were these people and how did they die? That's how you understand what actually happened. So with that in mind, here are the facts as of tonight. 4 of the 5 who died that day were Trump supporters. The 5th was a Capitol Hill police officer who apparently also supported Donald Trump. Why is this relevant? Of course, the political views of the deceased shouldn't matter. But unfortunately, in this case, they do. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and many other elected Democrats claim the mob was coming for them that day. Yet the only recorded casualties on January 6th were people who voted for Donald Trump. The first among them was a 34-year-old woman from Georgia called Roseanne Boyland. Authorities first announced that Boyland died of a, quote, medical emergency. Later video footage suggested she may have accidentally been trampled by the crowd. We're still not sure. That's the best guess. The second casualty was 55-year-old Kevin Greeson. Greeson died of heart failure while talking to his wife on a cell phone outside the Capitol. Quote, Kevin had a history of high blood pressure, his wife later said, and in the midst of the excitement, he suffered a heart attack, end quote. The third was 50-year-old Benjamin Phillips of Ringtown, Pennsylvania. Phillips was a Trump supporter who organized a bus trip to Washington for the rally that day. He died of a stroke on the grounds of the Capitol. There is no evidence that Phillips rioted or was injured by rioters or even went inside the Capitol building. The fourth person to die, the only person to die that day of intentional violence, was 35-year-old Ashley Babbitt, a military veteran from San Diego. Babbitt was wearing a Trump cape when she was shot to death by a Capitol Hill police lieutenant. Babbitt's death was caught on video, so hers is the best documented death that took place that day. And yet it is surprising how little we know about it. Babbitt was shot as she tried to crawl through a broken window into the speaker's lobby within the Capitol. And that's essentially the extent of what we know. Authorities have refused to release the name of the man who shot her or divulge any details of the investigation they say they've done. We may never know exactly why this unnamed Capitol Hill police officer took her life. According to that officer's attorney, quote, there's no way to look at the evidence and think that he is anything but a hero. Of course, we can't actually look at that evidence because they're withholding it. We can't even know his identity. Killing an unarmed woman may be justified under certain specific circumstances. But since when is it, quote, heroic when the dead woman has read QAnon websites? Republicans aren't asking that question. One Republican member of Congress from Oklahoma says he immediately hugged the officer who shot Ashley Babbitt. You did what you had to do, the congressman said. But did the officer really have to do that? We don't know. It would be nice to know. Maybe someone could ask. We do know that Ashley Babbitt was not holding a weapon when she was killed. Nevertheless, at the impeachment hearing this week, Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island described what happened at the Capitol as, quote, an armed insurrection. Watch.
He incited an armed, angry mob to riot. Inciting an armed insurrection against the United States government, an armed, angry, and dangerous crowd, armed violence against the government of the United States of America.
David Cicilline is a former mafia lawyer from Providence, so presumably he knows what it is to commit a felony with a firearm. Doubtless he does. There are no reports of rioters at the Capitol building that day discharging weapons or threatening anyone with a gun. So what exactly is David Cicilline talking about? Well, apparently he's referring to the death of Officer Brian Sicknick. In the hours after the riot, the New York Times reported that Trump supporters had brutally beaten Officer Sicknick to death with a fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher apparently is the deadly weapon, the armed in the armed insurrection. Now, the news of Sicknick's death by violence was quickly picked up by countless other media outlets. Cable television anchors repeated and then amplified it.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the hours-long attack. They beat a Capitol Police officer to death with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the fight.
He died at the age of 42 after he was bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher.
Capitol Hill police officer beaten to death with a fire extinguisher by a white supremacist mob. It's horrifying. And that is the story they were telling. It's a story they still are telling. That account forms the basis of the myth that Democrats have constructed around January 6th. Sicknick's remains lay in state at the Capitol building. Streams of politicians, the very same people who just months before had told us that cops were racist by definition, those same people praised Brian Sicknick as a hero. They had finally found a police officer who served their political uses. Kamala Harris and her husband, for example, arrived to pay their respects, and as they did, they said not one thing about defunding the police. But in fact, the story they told was a lie, from beginning to end. Officer Sicknick was not beaten to death, not with a fire extinguisher, not with anything else. According to an exhaustive and fascinating new analysis on Revolver News, there's no evidence that Brian Sicknick was hit with a fire extinguisher at any point during the day. None. No video, nothing. The officer's body apparently bore no signs of trauma. In fact, on the night of January 6th, long after rioters at the Capitol had been arrested or dispersed, Brian Sicknick texted his brother from his office. According to his brother, Sicknick said he'd been, quote, pepper sprayed twice and he was in good shape. 24 hours later, Officer Brian Sicknick was dead. How did Officer Sicknick die? The head of the Capitol Police Union has said he had a stroke, no cause given. More than that, we still don't know. Sicknick's body was cremated immediately. Authorities have refused to release his autopsy. No one has been charged in his death. No charges are pending. Whatever happened to Brian Sicknick was tragic, obviously, but it was also very different from what they have told us. They have lied about how he died. They've lied about a lot. For example, how did this riot start? Was it a spontaneous event incited by a reckless president on his way out in a fit of vicious pique? That's one version of the story. Or was the riot long planned? Was it a conspiracy? That's another version of the story. Both cannot be true. This weekend, the former chief of the Capitol Hill Police, Stephen Sund, claimed in a letter to Nancy Pelosi that there was no intelligence suggesting that a riot might be imminent at the Capitol. Apparently, the Washington Post has better sources than Chief Sund does. Days after January 6th, the newspaper reported that it was well known that a group of Trump supporters was headed to the city to cause trouble. The FBI almost certainly knew this. The feds likely had paid informers in the ranks of protesters. One of the rioters, we learned this yesterday, was a former FBI employee. Was he still on the FBI payroll? He wouldn't be the first. So if the authorities knew that violence might be coming to the Capitol, where was the necessary security? It wasn't there. In fact, the response of law enforcement on the scene that day is baffling the more deeply you look into it. In some publicly available videos, Capitol Hill police seem to be all but inviting rioters into the building. Here's one example. So what does all of this mean exactly? We're not sure what it means, and we're not going to speculate. We do know for certain that the known facts of what happened on January 6th deviate in very important ways from the story they are now telling us, including the story they told us today in the impeachment hearings. And in many places, the known facts bear no resemblance to the story they're telling. They're just flat out lying. There's no question about that. The question is, why would they lie about this? For an answer, think back to last spring. Beginning on Memorial Day, BLM and their sponsors in corporate America completely changed this country. They changed this country more in 5 months than it had changed in the previous 50 years. How'd they do that? They used the sad death of a man called George Floyd to upend our society. Months later, we learned that the story they told us about George Floyd's death was an utter lie. There was no physical evidence that George Floyd was murdered by a cop. The autopsy showed that George Floyd almost certainly died of a drug overdose, fentanyl. But by that point, facts didn't matter. It was too late. Cities had been destroyed, along with the fabric of this country itself. Scores of people had been killed. Democratic partisans used a carefully concocted myth, a lie, to bum rush America into overturning the old order and handing them much more power. It worked flawlessly. So why wouldn't they do it again? Joining us from Los Angeles is a man who watched all of this happen, the radio show host and all-around great observer and analyst and man, Larry Elder. Larry, great to see you tonight. So
Thank you so much for having me, Tucker. I appreciate it.
It's hard not to feel, and I'm not alleging conspiracy because it's happening in plain sight, but it's hard not to feel like a historic event, January 6th, which no person would ever defend, is being used by political partisans to gather more power to themselves, and the rest of us are letting it happen.
Well, Tucker, everything you said about needing more facts, of course, is rational, it's reasonable, and it is completely irrelevant because Donald Trump has been impeached twice and is now standing his second impeachment trial for the unpardonable capital offense, capital felony of being Donald Trump. The left thinks Donald Trump himself is a crime scene. Look at some of the characters involved in this play. Maxine Waters. Everybody knows Maxine Waters urged supporters to threaten Donald Trump cabinet members. She said, push back on them, surround them, form a crowd, let them know they're not welcome anywhere anymore. Forget about that. This is a woman who wrote a letter to Fidel Castro when Congress passed a resolution urging Castro to send back to America a woman who had murdered a New Jersey trooper, broke out of prison, and fled to Cuba. Maxine Waters writes Castro a letter, likens her to a freedom fighter, she's a former Black Panther, and says that the only reason she was prosecuted is because she was being persecuted for political beliefs and urged Castro to keep this woman. She remains there as we speak. Chuck Schumer, of course, is going to vote to convict President Trump. Chuck Schumer has often played the race card when asked whether or not Donald Trump is a racist. He said, well, he has said racist things. 1974, a young, upcoming, ambitious politician named Chuck Schumer met with some racist neighbors in an area in New York called Flatbush. There were 2 buildings, Tucker. They had black tenants. They weren't causing any problems. They weren't committing any crimes, but these racist neighbors wanted them out. The young Schumer met with the neighbors, and he said, look, here's what I'll do. Vote for me, and I'll introduce a measure to renovate these buildings. They'll have a right of first refusal, of course, but we'll make them so nice they won't be able to afford to come back. And voila, he introduced a scheme to do that. Unfortunately for Schumer and the racist neighbors, the blacks were able to come up with the money to move back into digs that were nicer than the digs they left, but not for want of trying. Now, the man who was attending this meeting is named Jay Homnick. He's a writer, Tucker, for American Spectator. He wrote about this in 2006. I've interviewed him several times over the years on my radio show. And I've asked him, has anybody from the New York Times, Washington Post asked you about this? He said no. The media are completely uninterested in this racist scheme to purge a New York neighborhood in 1974 of black people. Now, 1974 is a long time ago. I'll give you that. That's the same time that Donald Trump, a young Donald Trump, entered into a consent decree with the FHA to discontinue practices that the FHA felt were discriminatory against would-be black and brown renters. And that is often cited as a reason for Donald Trump's alleged racism. Around the same time, Chuck Schumer introduced this racist scheme to purge a New York neighborhood of black people, and nobody gives a damn. This is the kind of double standard that we've been up against for years, and I am sick of it. I am sick of it. These characters involved in getting rid of Donald Trump, impeaching him, and now convicting him have done horrific things, and the media could not care less. Who writes a letter to Castro? Who in 1974 introduces a plan to get rid of black people? Who does that? Media indifferent.
Hard to take a moral lecture from these people. I completely agree. They win because they scream louder than more aggressive. It's totally true. Larry Eldridge, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that.
It is. Thank you, Tucker. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So, Mark.
Okay, I think that's going to about do it for today. So let's wind things up with a nice hymn from St. Andrew's Cathedral in Sydney, Australia. Wow, you got to hand it to the Christians. They have some amazing art and amazing music. This was released April 19th of 2020. Henry Francis Light's immortal hymn on the Christian hope in darkness, one of the enduring favorites sung by millions worldwide. So Abide With Me, recorded at St. Andrew's Cathedral in Sydney, Australia, about 5 weeks into the COVID-19 outbreak.